My sister made an Instagram account just to post a video of me getting kicked out. It went viral. Hundreds of thousands of people watched it within hours. My mother cried on camera, saying I gave her everything. My father stood by the door and threw my things into the street like garbage. My sister mocked me, shouting that the freeloader is finally gone. I watched the video once. I did not report it. I did not cry. I simply downloaded it. 1 week later, they discovered what I had actually done, and that is when the screaming started. I am Kamara, 30 years old, and for the last decade I have been the invisible bank account that kept my family afloat. To them, I am just a quiet data entry clerk who drives a beat-up Honda Civic and wears thrift store clothes. They think I am a failure compared to my glamorous sister Bianca and her visionary tech husband Hunter. They have no idea that the Honda is a choice, and my real job involves crisis management for seven-figure clients who value discretion above all else. But last Sunday, the crisis was in my own living room. Before I tell you how I legally destroyed their lives in 48 hours, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever been the scapegoat who finally decided to bite back. The conflict started over something as trivial as lighting. We were sitting at the dinner table for our traditional Sunday soul food dinner. My mother Patricia had made her signature mac and cheese, but the atmosphere was anything but comforting. My brother-in-law Hunter was sighing loudly, pushing his food around his plate. Hunter is a 38-year-old white man who calls himself a serial entrepreneur, though the only thing he has successfully launched in 5 years is a string of maxed-out credit cards. He looked around the dining room with disdain. "The chi in this house is stifling my creativity," Hunter announced, dropping his fork onto the china with a loud clatter. "I cannot launch a billion-dollar startup from the corner of the living room, Patricia. I need a dedicated office space. A sanctuary for my genius." My mother nodded sympathetically, pouring him more sweet tea. "Of course, Hunter. You need space to provide for this family. We all understand that." I kept my head down, cutting my chicken. I knew exactly where this was going. This was a conversation they had rehearsed. Bianca, my sister, chimed in. She was scrolling through her phone, checking her engagement metrics. She looked up, her eyes landing on me with a predatory glint. "Well, there is a perfectly good room at the end of the hall. It has the best natural light. It would be perfect for Hunter's studio." I stopped eating. That was my bedroom. The room I had slept in since I was 10 years old. The room in the house that, legally speaking, belonged to a trust fund they knew nothing about. I looked up. "That is my room, Bianca." She rolled her eyes. "You are 30 years old, Kamara. It is embarrassing that you are still here. Honestly, you should be grateful we let you stay this long. Hunter needs that space to build our future." "What do you do in there anyway? Type numbers into a spreadsheet for minimum wage?" "Excuse me," I said, my voice steady but cold. "I pay the electric bill. I pay the water bill. And last month when the roof was leaking, I gave Mom $2,000 cash to fix it. I am hardly a guest here." My father Winston slammed his hand on the table. "Enough, Kamara. Do not throw pennies in our face. Your sister and Hunter are building a brand. They are public figures. You are just taking up space. If Hunter needs the room to work, he gets the room. You can sleep on the pull-out sofa in the basement until you find a cheap apartment." The basement was full of mold. They knew I had asthma. This was not a request. It was an eviction from my own dignity. "I am not moving to the basement," I said, picking up my napkin. "And Hunter is not taking my room." Hunter's face turned red. He stood up, towering over the table. He likes to use his size to intimidate, a tactic that might work on my parents, but not on someone who negotiates with sharks for a living. "You are so selfish," Hunter spat. "I am trying to save this family from mediocrity, and you are worried about your little bedroom. You know what I am done asking." He turned and marched down the hallway. My heart hammered against my ribs. I stood up to follow him, but my mother grabbed my wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong. "Sit down, Kamara," she hissed. "Let him do what he needs to do. Don't you dare cause a scene." I ripped my arm away and ran down the hall, but I was too late. Hunter was already in my room. He had grabbed a stack of my books and my laptop bag. "Get out!" he screamed, channeling a rage that had nothing to do with office space and everything to do with his own failures. He threw the books into the hallway. They hit the wall with a sickening thud. Then he grabbed the quilt from my bed, the one Grandma Marcus had stitched for me by hand before she passed. He bunched it up and hurled it toward the front door. I froze. That quilt was the only thing I cared about in this house. "Hunter, stop," I warned, my voice dropping an octave. "Do not touch my things." He laughed, grabbing my suitcase from the closet. "Or what? What are you going to do, Data Girl? Call the police? This is my house." He marched past me, shoving me into the doorframe with his shoulder. He walked straight to the front door and kicked it open. My parents were behind me now, watching. Neither of them said a word to stop him. My father actually looked proud, as if Hunter was finally taking charge. Hunter threw my suitcase onto the front lawn. It burst open. My clothes spilled out onto the wet grass. It had started to drizzle, a gray, miserable rain that soaked my sweaters instantly. "Get your trash off my property!" Hunter yelled, standing on the porch like a conqueror. I walked out onto the porch, trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer effort of holding back my fury. I went to the steps to gather my things. That is when the light blinded me. I looked up. Bianca was standing there, her phone raised. The flash was on. She was recording. "Say cheese, freeloader?" She laughed. I stood up, holding my muddy clothes. Bianca put the phone down. "No way," she said, stepping closer, making sure to get a good angle of my humiliation. "This is content gold. The toxic family member finally gets the boot. My followers are going to love this. Tell them how it feels, Kamara. Tell them how it feels to be 30 and useless." My mother stepped into the frame. She wiped a tear from her cheek, looking directly at the camera lens. "Oh, it breaks my heart. I gave her everything. We sacrificed so much for her, but she just takes and takes. We had no choice. It was a performance. A perfect, sick performance." I looked at my father. He was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Go on, Kamara. Leave. And don't come back until you have an apology and a check for back rent." The rain was getting heavier. My hair was plastered to my forehead. I looked at the three of them. Hunter panting and red-faced. Bianca smirking behind her screen. Mom playing the victim. I could have screamed. I could have told them right then that I owned the deed to the house. I could have told them that the car Hunter drove was in my name. I could have told them that the credit card in his wallet was paid by my bank account. But I didn't. I realized in that moment that an argument would not hurt them. Only total destruction would hurt them. And destruction requires preparation. I looked straight into Bianca's camera lens. My face was void of emotion. I wanted to make sure the camera caught my eyes. "Make sure you save that video, Bianca," I said softly. "You are going to need it." I turned around, walked to my car, and threw my wet clothes into the trunk. I did not look back as I backed out of the driveway. I saw them high-fiving on the porch. They thought they had won. They thought they had just trimmed the fat from their lives. As I drove away, my phone buzzed. It was an Instagram notification. Bianca had tagged me. The caption read, "Finally cleaning house. Toxic energy gone. New beginnings." I drove 2 miles down the road and pulled into a parking lot. I took a deep breath, opened my laptop, and logged into my bank app. I scrolled down to the credit card ending in 4098, the card Hunter used for his gas, his clothes, and his startup expenses. I hovered my mouse over the button that said "Report lost or stolen." I smiled for the first time that day. Then I clicked. The windshield wipers of my 10-year-old Honda Civic squeaked rhythmically against the glass, fighting a losing battle against the Seattle rain. Inside the car, it smelled like wet wool and the humiliating scent of dirty laundry. My clothes were heaped in the back seat, a chaotic pile of sweaters and jeans that my brother-in-law had thrown onto the muddy lawn just 30 minutes ago. To anyone looking at me through the rain-streaked window, I was the picture of defeat. A 30-year-old woman evicted by her own family, driving a car that sounded like a lawnmower with nowhere to go but a cheap motel or a homeless shelter. I drove in silence. I did not turn on the radio. My mind was not dwelling on the pain of my mother's betrayal or the cruelty of my sister's laughter. My mind was shifting gears. The part of me that was Kamara, the quiet, subservient daughter, was dying in the driver's seat. The part of me that was Ms. Miller, the relentless CEO, was taking the wheel. I pulled up to the entrance of the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown. The contrast was almost comical. My battered gray Honda was sandwiched between a Bentley and a matte black Lamborghini. A young valet rushed over his face, initially confused as he approached my window. He likely expected a delivery driver or a lost tourist. But as the window rolled down and he saw my face, his posture snapped straight. He recognized me instantly. "Good evening, Ms. Miller," he said, opening my door with the same reverence he would show a head of state. "Shall I take the car to the underground garage, or do you need it kept up front?" "Take it underground, Leo," I said, stepping out into the cool night air. "And have the detailing team clean the interior. It smells like mediocrity." "Right away, Ms. Miller. Welcome home." I walked through the revolving glass doors, leaving the cold rain behind. The lobby was a sanctuary of warm gold lighting, white marble, and the faint scent of white tea and thyme. The concierge, a man named Raymond, who had worked there for 20 years, looked up from his desk. He did not blink at my wet hair or my muddy boots. He simply slid a gold key card across the marble counter. "The penthouse is ready, Ms. Miller. We stocked the fridge with the sparkling water you prefer, and your server holds have been rebooted as requested." "Thank you, Raymond. Hold my calls, unless it is my lawyer." I took the private elevator to the top floor. As the numbers climbed, I felt the heavy weight of my family's house falling off my shoulders. When the doors opened, I stepped into my real life. The penthouse was 3,000 square feet of glass and steel, overlooking the entire city skyline. It was minimalist, cold, and expensive. This was not the home of a data entry clerk. This was the headquarters of KM Crisis Management. My family thought I typed numbers into spreadsheets for minimum wage. They thought I was struggling to pay my student loans. The truth was, I paid off my loans 5 years ago. I did not just type data. I erased it. I controlled it. I manipulated it. I am the person billionaires call when their son gets arrested for a DUI. I am the person tech moguls call when an inappropriate email leaks. I am the cleaner. I own a firm that bills $700 an hour, and I have a waiting list of clients who would pay double that just to have me sign a non-disclosure agreement. I built this empire in silence because I always knew that if my family found out, they would drain me dry. They would not see my success as mine. They would see it as their lottery ticket. So I played the role of the poor, struggling sister. I drove the Honda. I wore the thrift store sweaters. I let them feel superior because it kept my money safe. But tonight the masquerade was over. I threw my wet coat onto the Italian leather sofa and walked straight to my desk. It was a massive slab of black granite dominated by 3 curved monitors. I sat down in my ergonomic chair, the leather creaking softly, and woke up the system. The screens flared to life. My fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard, logging into my secure server. First, I checked my bank accounts. The balances were healthy, steady, and untouched. Then I opened a new browser window and typed in Instagram. I did not have to search for it. It was already trending. My sister Bianca had posted the video 20 minutes ago. It was titled, "Finally Kicking Out the Toxic Freeloader." I clicked play. I watched myself on the screen. I looked small, wet, and pathetic standing on the lawn. I watched Hunter throw my quilt, my grandmother's quilt, into the mud. I watched my mother cry those crocodile tears, claiming she had given me everything. I watched Bianca sneer at the camera, her face twisted in ugly triumph. The view count was climbing by the second. 10,000, 15,000, 50,000. I scrolled down to the comments. They were brutal. One user wrote, "Imagine being 30 and still mooching off your parents. Pathetic." Another wrote, "The audacity of her to stand there and look at them like that. Good riddance." And another, "The brother-in-law is a hero for protecting his wife's peace. That girl looks like bad news." My chest tightened, but not with sadness. It was a cold, sharp feeling. Rage. Pure distilled rage. They were destroying my reputation. They were painting a narrative that would follow me forever if I did not stop it. My finger hovered over the report button. I could have this video taken down in 5 minutes. I knew people at Meta. I could make a phone call and have Bianca's account suspended for harassment. I could silence them right now. But then I stopped. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the video again. I looked at Hunter's arrogance. I looked at the way he shoved me. I looked at the way my mother lied effortlessly. If I took the video down, nobody would see the truth. If I took it down, they would just spin another story. They would say I hacked them. They would say I was silencing their truth. No. I needed the world to see this. I needed the world to see exactly who they were. But more importantly, I needed the world to watch the fall. The higher the pedestal, the harder the crash. I opened a new tab. I logged into one of my shadow marketing accounts, the ones I use to manipulate public opinion for my clients. I linked the video. I set the target demographic to everyone in our city, everyone in Hunter's professional network, everyone in my mother's church group, and every major viral content aggregator in the country. I typed in the budget. $10,000. I was not going to report the video. I was going to promote it. I was going to make sure every single person in America saw Hunter throw a woman's clothes into the rain. I was going to make sure every potential investor saw the real face of the so-called visionary entrepreneur. I clicked Confirm Payment. The screen flashed Campaign Active. I watched the view count jump. 100,000. 200,000. It was spreading like a virus. Good. Let them have their 15 minutes of fame. Let them think they have won. Let them get drunk on the attention. Because when the hangover hits, it is going to be fatal. I stood up and walked to the built-in wine cooler. I pulled out a bottle of vintage Cabernet, the kind my father would claim was a waste of money, and poured myself a glass. I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and looked out at the city lights below. Somewhere out there in that dark suburb, my family was probably popping cheap champagne celebrating my departure. They were probably measuring my room for Hunter's desk. They had no idea that the house they were standing in, the roof over their heads, and the very ground beneath their feet belonged to a trust fund controlled by the woman they just threw out. I took a slow sip of the wine. It tasted like iron and blackberries. It tasted like victory. "Enjoy the views, Bianca," I whispered to the empty room. "Because tomorrow I am calling the bank. And the next day I am calling the lawyers. You wanted a show, I am going to give you a blockbuster." I turned back to the screens. The video had just hit 500,000 views. I smiled a cold, humorless smile that didn't reach my eyes. Let's see how much heat you can handle before you burn. The glow of my laptop screen was the only light in my penthouse as I watched the view count on Bianca's video tick upward like a erratic heartbeat. 900,000, 950,000, 1 million. It had taken less than 24 hours for my sister to become the internet's favorite villain slayer, or so she thought. In reality, she was just the clown in a circus I had paid for. I sat back in my leather chair, swirling the last of the Cabernet in my glass, watching the digital celebration unfold on the hidden cameras I had installed in the living room years ago for security. Now they were my personal reality television show. Back at the house, the atmosphere was electric, with a delusion so thick you could cut it with a knife. Bianca was dancing around the kitchen island, holding her phone up like a trophy. She was screaming. "We did it. We are viral. I am officially an influencer. My mother." Patricia was clapping her hands, her face flushed with excitement. "I told you, honey. I told you that you were made for stardom. Look at those numbers. That is more people than live in this entire city." Bianca stopped dancing and stared at her screen, her eyes widening. "Oh my God. You guys are not going to believe this. I just got a DM from FitLife Detox Tea. They want to send me a PR package and give me a promo code. They want me to be an ambassador hunter who was leaning against the fridge drinking a beer let out a loud whoop. That is it, baby! That is the money train pulling into the station. I told you getting rid of that dead weight, Kamara would change our luck. It is the law of attraction. We cleared the negative energy, and now the universe is rewarding us. I watched from my screen, my expression flat. FitLife Detox Tea was a pyramid scheme that paid their ambassadors an expired product and 5% commission on sales that never happened. But to them, it was the same as a Nike contract. It was validation. "We need to celebrate," Hunter announced, slamming his empty bottle onto the counter. "We need to do something big. Now that we have the office space and the brand is taking off, we look like players. We need to act like players." My father Winston nodded in agreement. He was sitting at the table looking more relaxed than I had seen him in years. The tension of my presence was gone, replaced by the intoxicating high of unearned victory. "You are right, son. We have been carrying a heavy burden for too long. We deserve a reward." "Let's go to Cabo," Bianca squealed. "The influencers are always in Cabo. We can get content by the pool. We can take photos on a yacht. It will show everyone that we are thriving." "Cabo it is," Hunter declared. 5 stars, business class. No more economy for this family. We are launching a tech empire. I watched as they moved the party from the kitchen to the living room, planning a vacation that would cost $15,000. They had not made a single dime from the video yet. In fact, they had less money than they did yesterday, because I had paused the auto transfer to the joint checking account. But they were drunk on potential. They were spending money they felt they were owed by the universe. Hunter suddenly stopped in the hallway. "Wait. Before we book anything, I need to clear the slate completely. I need to make sure that room is ready for business." I leaned closer to my monitor. I knew what was coming. Hunter marched down the hallway to my old bedroom. Bianca and my parents followed him like eager disciples. He kicked the door open. The room was exactly as I had left it, stripped of my clothes but still holding the furniture and memories of my 30 years there. "This paint color is depressing," Hunter sneered, looking at the soft cream walls. "We are painting it gray, slate gray, masculine, powerful. And this junk, it has to go." He walked over to the bookshelf I had left behind. On the top shelf sat a small, delicate porcelain angel. It was not expensive, but it was significant. Grandma Marcus had given it to me when I graduated high school. It was one of the few things I had forgotten to pack in my haste. Hunter picked it up. His hands were clumsy and careless. "What is this garbage, knickknacks? We don't need clutter in a headquarters." "Don't," I whispered to my empty penthouse. Hunter tossed the angel into the trash bag he was holding. I heard the porcelain shatter against the bottom of the can. "Trash," he muttered. Then he grabbed the curtains, the ones I had sewn myself, and ripped them off the rod. The sound of tearing fabric was sharp and violent. He began clearing the shelves with his arms, sweeping books, photo frames, and my old awards onto the floor. Bianca laughed, filming the destruction. Out with the old, in with the gold. "Goodbye, Kamara." My mother stood in the doorway, watching her son-in-law destroy her daughter's sanctuary. She did not flinch. She did not say, "Hunter, that is too much." She just smiled. "It really does open up the space," she said. I felt a coldness settle in my chest that was deeper than anger. It was finality. That shattered angel was the last tether. If there was any small, foolish part of me that hoped they might wake up and realize what they had done, it died in that trash bag. Hunter finished his rampage, breathing hard, looking satisfied. "Now let's book that trip. I want to be drinking tequila by the ocean by Friday." They moved back to the living room. My father pulled out his laptop. He was the one with the platinum credit card, or at least the card that had the platinum color. He sat down on the sofa, adjusting his glasses. "Okay, let's see," Winston muttered, typing slowly. "Aero Mexico. Business class. 4 seats. Round trip. Oh, get the resort with the infinity pool," Dad, Bianca shouted from the couch. "The one with the swim-up bar. Got it. The Grand Velas. All inclusive, Winston said, looking proud to be the provider. He entered the passenger details. Hunter Miller, Bianca Miller, Patricia Miller. Winston Miller. The total came up on the screen. I zoomed in on my camera feed. $16,420. My father whistled. Steep. But quality costs money. And with Hunter's company taking off, this is just an investment. Put it on the card, Winston, my mother urged. We deserve this. I sat in my penthouse, my finger hovering over the enter key on my own keyboard. I had the banking portal open on my center monitor. The card my father was holding was a supplementary card issued under my primary account. I had paid the bill for that card every month for the last 6 years. He thought it was his line of credit. He thought his good credit score was due to his financial responsibility. He had no idea that I was the engine keeping the plane in the air. He typed in the card number, 4098. He typed in the expiration date. He typed in the security code. Here we go, Cabo, he announced and clicked the big yellow purchase button. On my screen, a notification popped up. Transaction attempt $16,420. Approve or deny. I did not hesitate. I did not blink. I clicked deny. Then I clicked freeze card. Then I clicked report lost/stolen. Back in the living room, the little wheel on my father's laptop screen spun and spun and spun. They held their breath. Hunter was already looking up beach outfits on his phone. Then the screen flashed red. Transaction declined. Please contact your financial institution. My father frowned. That is weird. Maybe I typed it in wrong. Try it again, Dad, Bianca said. You probably missed a digit. He typed it in again. Slower this time. He clicked purchase. Spin, spin, red. Transaction declined. What the hell? Hunter snapped. Winston, did you pay the bill? Of course I paid the bill, Winston argued, though his voice wavered slightly. I mean, the auto pay goes through every month. It never misses. I took a sip of my wine. The auto pay came from my account. And I had canceled it yesterday. Call them, Patricia said, panic creeping into her voice. Call the bank. It must be a mistake. A fraud alert or something. My father pulled out his phone and dialed the number on the back of the card. He put it on speaker so everyone could hear the bank apologize for the inconvenience. Welcome to Chase Sapphire Services, the automated voice said. Please enter your card number. He typed it in. We are sorry, the voice said loud and clear in the silent living room. The card number you entered has been reported lost or stolen and is no longer active. If you are not the primary account holder, please contact the primary account holder for assistance. The room went dead silent. Primary account holder. Hunter asked, his eyes narrowing. Winston, isn't this your card? My father looked pale. He was sweating. Well, yes. I mean, it has my name on it. But, well, technically, when we refinanced the house 10 years ago. Technically, what Winston, my mother shrieked. Technically, Kamara opened the account because her credit score was higher, my father mumbled. But I have been using it for years. It is my card. Hunter stood up. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a dangerous mix of fear and fury. So you are telling me that the card we use for everything, the card we just tried to book a $16,000 trip with, eyes controlled by the girl we just kicked out onto the street? My father swallowed hard. She probably just messed something up. She is incompetent. I will call her. I will demand she fix this. He dialed my number. In my penthouse, my phone began to buzz on the desk. I looked at the caller ID, Dad. I picked up the phone. I did not answer it. I simply pressed the button on the side that sent the call straight to voicemail. Back in the living room, they heard my automated voicemail greeting. It was the standard one. Then Hunter grabbed the phone from my father's hand and threw it onto the couch. She blocked us, and she cut the card. So, no, Cabo Bianca asked, her voice small and trembling. Hunter looked at her, his face twisting into a snarl. No, Cabo. You idiot. If she cut the card, how are we going to buy groceries? How are we going to put gas in the car? He looked around the room, the reality finally crashing down on him. The gray paint on the walls suddenly didn't look like a fresh start. It looked like the color of a prison cell. I closed my laptop. The show was over for tonight. The panic had set in. But they had no idea that the credit card was the least of their problems. Tomorrow, the power company was scheduled to do a meter check, and the day after that, the lawyers would be serving the papers. I walked to my bedroom, leaving the empty wine glass on the counter. I slept soundly for the first time in years, while across town my family sat in the dark arguing over whose fault it was that the money tap had run dry. The silence in the living room was heavier than the humid air outside. My father Winston held the phone to his ear, his hand trembling slightly. The automated voice from the bank had faded, replaced by a live representative who sounded tired and entirely uninterested in my father's panic. Hunter was pacing back and forth on the expensive Persian rug, chewing his fingernails. Bianca was sitting on the edge of the sofa, clutching her phone like a lifeline, waiting for a miracle that was not coming. Sir, the representative said, her voice amplified by the speakerphone. I am looking at the account details now. As we stated, the card ending in 4098 has been frozen by the primary account holder. But I am the account holder, my father stammered. My name is on the card, Winston Miller. I have been using this card for 10 years. I understand that your name is on the plastic, sir. The woman replied, her tone sharpening. But you are listed as an authorized user. The line of credit is secured and guaranteed by Ms. Kamara Miller. She called our fraud department 30 minutes ago. She stated that the card is in the possession of unauthorized individuals and requested an immediate freeze. Fraud, my mother screeched, jumping up from her chair. She called us frauds. We are her parents. The representative ignored her. Ms. Miller also removed her authorization for any future charges. If you wish to reactivate a line of credit, you will need to apply for your own account. Mr. Miller, would you like me to transfer you to the application department? My father's face went gray. He knew deep down that his credit score was barely 500. Without my name attached to his, he couldn't get approved for a stick of gum, let alone a $16,000 vacation. No, he whispered. I will handle it. He hung up. The click of the phone ending was the sound of their reality cracking. So that is it, Hunter shouted, kicking the coffee table. She just cuts us off. Who does she think she is? I have business expenses, Winston. I have a brand to build. My mother. Patricia puffed up her chest, relying on the one tactic that had always worked for her. Intimidation. Give me the phone. I will straighten this out. That girl has lost her mind. She thinks she can play power games with me. I brought her into this world, and I can certainly make her life a living hell until she fixes this. She grabbed the landline and dialed my number. She stabbed the buttons with aggressive force. We watched her wait. She held the receiver tight, her face set in a scowl, ready to unleash a torrent of guilt and biblical verses. But there was no ringing. Instead, a flat mechanical recording filled the room. We are sorry. The number you have dialed is not accepting calls from this number. Please check the number and try again. My mother pulled the phone away from her ear and stared at it as if it were a venomous snake. She blocked the house line. Try your cell, Bianca said. Mom pulled out her cell phone. She dialed. One ring, then straight to voicemail. She blocked my cell too. Mom whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of shock and fury. She blocked her own mother. Hunter let out a dark, humorless laugh. Of course she did. She is a coward. She throws a grenade and runs away. Well, fine. Let her play her little games. We don't need her money. I have my stream tonight. I am scheduled to go live in 20 minutes. My followers are expecting a big announcement about the new office. Once the donations start rolling in, we won't need her stupid credit card. He marched toward the hallway, heading for the spare bedroom where he had set up his gaming rig. I am going to make $2,000 tonight, just watch. And when I do, I am not sharing a cent with any of you." He disappeared into the room. We heard the familiar sound of his computer booting up, the whir of the cooling fans, and the aggressive clicking of his mechanical keyboard. Bianca sighed and leaned back on the sofa. "At least the Wi-Fi is still working. I need to upload a story explaining why we are delaying the Cabo trip. I will just say we are too busy with business meetings." My father walked to the kitchen to pour himself a glass of tap water. The ice maker on the fridge made a hollow grinding sound. It was empty. Suddenly, a scream erupted from the back bedroom. It was Hunter. "No, no, no, no." The lights in the kitchen flickered once, then twice. Then with a definitive pop, everything went black. The hum of the refrigerator died. The air conditioning unit outside sputtered and silenced. The blue glow of the router lights in the hallway vanished into the darkness. Hunter came running out of the bedroom using his phone flashlight as a torch. What happened? Who turned off the lights? My stream was loading. I was in the pre-game lobby. My father fumbled in the dark. "It must be a blown fuse. Let me find the breaker box." He stumbled his way to the utility closet in the hallway. We heard the metal door creak open, then the click-clack of him flipping switches. Nothing happened. The house remained pitch black. "It is not the breaker," Dad said, his voice sounding hollow in the dark. "The switches are all on." My mother gasped. "The bill. Kamara pays the electric bill." Bianca held up her phone. Her face was illuminated by the screen, looking pale and ghostly. "Guys, the Wi-Fi is gone. And wait." She tapped her screen frantically. "My data isn't working either. My phone says no service." Hunter checked his phone. "Mine too." "What is going on?" "It is a family plan," my father said quietly, sinking into the invisible darkness of the living room. Kamara bundled everything. The electricity, the internet, the cell phone plan. It was cheaper that way. She paid for all of it. She shut it all down. Hunter whispered, the realization finally piercing his thick skull. She left us in the dark. Literally. For a moment, nobody moved. The house, usually filled with the noise of the TV, the hum of electronics, and their own loud voices, was terrifiedly silent. They were alone in the dark, cut off from the world, cut off from their money, and cut off from their ego. But the night was not over. Outside, heavy headlights swept across the front window, illuminating the living room for a brief second. The rumble of a large diesel engine vibrated through the floorboards. Then the screech of air brakes. "Someone is here," my mother said, hope creeping back into her voice. "Maybe it is Kamara. Maybe she came back to apologize." I knew she couldn't stay away. Hunter ran to the window. "It is a truck, a big box truck." A loud, authoritative pounding echoed from the front door. Boom, boom, boom. My father went to answer it. He opened the door to reveal two large men in blue uniforms standing on the porch. Rain was falling behind them. The logo on their shirts read, "Rent-A-Center." "Mr. Hunter Miller?" the first man asked, holding a clipboard. Hunter stepped forward, looking confused. "Yeah, that is me. We are here for the repossession order," the man said, shining a flashlight onto his paperwork. "Repossession?" Hunter scoffed. "You have the wrong house, buddy. We don't rent furniture, we buy." The man looked at the paper again. Account holder Kamara Miller called in a voluntary surrender of assets roughly an hour ago. She stated that the payment plan for the home theater system, the 85-inch OLED television, and the Italian leather sectional sofa has been cancelled. She requested immediate pickup. "What?" Hunter screamed. "No. That is my TV? I use that for work." "You can't take it, sir," the man said, stepping into the foyer. His partner followed him. "The contract clearly states that if payments cease or the primary account holder requests a return, we take the merchandise. Unless you can pay the remaining balance of $7,000 right now." Hunter checked his pockets as if $7,000 might magically appear there. He looked at Winston. Winston looked at the floor. "I didn't think so," the man said. He signaled to his partner. Let's move it out. Grab the TV first. No, don't touch it. Hunter tried to block their path, standing in front of the massive television like a human shield. The second repo man, a guy who looked like he moved refrigerators for fun, simply stepped around him. Sir, do not interfere, or we will call the sheriff. We are already doing this in the dark. Do not make it harder. My mother started crying again, a high-pitched wail. This is humiliating! What will the neighbors think? The neighbors don't care, lady, the first man grunted as he disconnected the cables. For the next 20 minutes, my family stood in the dark and watched as their status symbols were stripped away. They watched the 85-inch TV, the pride of Hunter's existence, get boxed up and carried out into the rain. They watched the sectional sofa, the one Bianca liked to pose on for her selfies, get separated into pieces and marched out the door. The house echoed with the sounds of boots on hardwood and the grunts of the movers. When they were finished, the living room was cavernous, empty. The repo man handed my father a pink slip of paper. Receipt for surrender. Have a good night. They slammed the front door. The engine roared and the truck drove away, taking the illusion of their wealth with it. My family stood in the center of the living room. There was no furniture to sit on. There was no TV to watch. There was no internet to complain on. There was no light to see each other's faces. Slowly, one by one, they sank down onto the cold hardwood floor. My mother huddled in the corner. Bianca pulled her knees to her chest. Hunter stared at the blank wall where his TV used to be. For the first time in their lives, they were sitting in exactly the lifestyle they could afford. Nothing. The morning sun did not bring relief to the Miller household. It only illuminated the empty spaces where the furniture used to be. The living room looked like a gap-toothed smile, jagged and hollow. My brother-in-law Hunter woke up on the floor, his back aching and his ego bruised. He looked around at the dust bunnies dancing in the light where his 85-inch television had stood just 12 hours ago. The silence of the house was maddening. No internet hum, no refrigerator buzz, just the sound of his own heavy breathing and the growing realization that his kingdom was crumbling. But Hunter was not a man who accepted defeat. He was a man who doubled down on delusion. He stood up, brushed the dust off his designer sweatpants and looked at his reflection in the hallway mirror. He saw a visionary. He saw a victim of circumstances. He saw a man who just needed one big win to turn the tide. He walked into the kitchen where my parents were sitting on folding chairs they had dug out of the garage, eating dry cereal because the milk had spoiled in the warm fridge. "I am fixing this," Hunter announced, grabbing his car keys from the counter. My mother looked up, hope flickering in her tired eyes. "Are you going to find a job?" "Hunter job?" Hunter scoffed, as if the word was a slur. "I am an entrepreneur, Patricia. I don't get jobs. I make moves. I am going to the dealership." "The dealership?" my father asked, confused. "Why, because this SUV is bad luck," Hunter said, spinning the keys on his finger. "It is a 2022 model. It is old news. I am going to trade it in. Get the new Escalade. Maybe lease 2 cars with the trade-in value. One for me, one for Bianca. We need to look successful to attract investors. If we roll up in a brand new fleet, nobody will care about the furniture. Perception is reality, Winston." He did not wait for their response. He marched out the front door, feeling the weight of the key fob in his hand. It was the only thing he had left. The black Cadillac Escalade sitting in the driveway. It was a beast of a machine. My father had driven it home 2 years ago, beaming with pride, handing the keys to Hunter and saying, "It is all yours, son. You need a big car for big business." Hunter climbed into the driver's seat. The leather was still soft. The new car smell lingered. He pushed the start button and the engine roared to life. This was power. This was control. As long as he had this, he was still the man. He drove to the luxury auto mall on the other side of town, blasting music from his downloaded playlist since the streaming services were cut. He pulled into the dealership lot, parking diagonally across two spaces right in front of the glass doors. He stepped out, adjusting his sunglasses, ready to wheel and deal. A salesman in a sharp blue suit walked out to greet him. He had the hungry look of someone who worked on commission. "Welcome to Prestige Motors. I see you are driving a beauty today." Looking to upgrade, Hunter leaned against the hood, crossing his arms. "Yeah. I am thinking about the 2024 Platinum Edition. Black on black. And I want to talk numbers on this trade-in. Low mileage. Kept in a garage. It is practically mint." The salesman nodded enthusiastically. "We can definitely help you with that. The market for used luxury SUVs is hot right now. Let's get the VIN number and run the title. Why don't you come inside, grab a coffee, and we will get the paperwork started." Hunter strutted into the showroom like he owned the place. He sat in the leather client chair, sipping a complimentary espresso, watching the salesman type on his computer. He was already mentally spending the money. He would get the new car, maybe get a cashback deal, buy some new furniture, and get the internet back on. He would show Kamara. He would show everyone. The salesman frowned at his screen. He typed something else. Then he stopped. "Is there a problem?" Hunter asked, checking his watch. "I have meetings later. Let's speed this up." The salesman stood up. His smile was gone. It was replaced by a polite professional mask. "Just a discrepancy with the system, sir. It happens. Let me just check with my manager in the back. I will be right back." He walked away quickly. Hunter sat there tapping his foot. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He finished his espresso. He started to get annoyed. He stood up to find the manager himself. That is when he saw them. Through the glass walls of the office, he saw the salesman pointing at him. Next to the salesman stood 2 uniformed police officers. Hunter's stomach dropped. He froze. The officers walked out of the office, their hands resting near their belts. They marched straight toward him. The showroom fell silent. Other customers looked up from their brochures. "Are you Hunter Miller?" the taller officer asked. Hunter forced a laugh, but it came out as a squeak. "Yeah, that is me. What is this about? Did I park wrong?" The officer did not smile. "Sir, we received a flag on the vehicle you drove in. A black Cadillac Escalade, VIN, ending in 5592. "Yeah, that is my truck," Hunter said, puffing out his chest. "I am trading it in." The officer pulled a piece of paper from his clipboard. "According to the state database, this vehicle is registered to a Ms. Kamara Miller." Hunter rolled his eyes. "Yeah, that is my sister-in-law. She handled the paperwork for us. But it is my car. My in-laws bought it for me. I have been driving it for 2 years. Ask anyone." The officer looked at him with cold, hard eyes. "Ms. Kamara Miller filed a police report this morning. She listed this vehicle as stolen." "Stolen?" Hunter shouted, his voice cracking. "That is a lie. She is crazy. She gave it to me." "Do you have a bill of sale?" the officer asked. "Do you have a transfer of title? Do you have a notarized letter of authorization allowing you to drive or sell this vehicle?" Hunter opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He looked back at the salesman, who was now pretending to organize files. He looked at the customers staring at him. I don't have the papers on me," Hunter stammered. "But my father-in-law, Winston, he will vouch for me." "Call him sir. The registered owner says you do not have permission to have this vehicle. The status is unauthorized use. That is a felony. Now, Ms. Miller has stated she does not want to press charges if the vehicle is returned immediately and undamaged. However, you are currently attempting to sell stolen property. I am not stealing it. I am trading it in." Hunter yelled, sweat beading on his forehead. The officer stepped closer. "Sir, hand me the keys. Now. Or we will arrest you for grand theft auto." Hunter looked at the officers. He looked at the handcuffs on their belts. He looked at the shiny new Escalade in the showroom that he would never drive. Slowly, with a trembling hand, he reached into his pocket and pulled out the key fob. He dropped it into the officer's hand. "Thank you," the officer said. "The vehicle stays here. You are free to go, but do not let us catch you behind the wheel of a car that isn't yours again." Hunter stood there stripped of his last symbol of status. "But how am I supposed to get home? It is 10 miles away." The officer shrugged. "Uber." "Oh, wait. Do you have a phone?" Hunter patted his pockets. His phone had no service. "I guess you are walking," the officer said, turning his back. Hunter walked out of the dealership. The sun was hot now. He was wearing heavy designer sweatpants and unsupportive slide sandals. He started the long walk home along the side of the highway. Cars zoomed past him, kicking up dust and exhaust fumes. About a mile down the road, a car slowed down. A window rolled down. Hunter looked up, hoping for a ride. It wasn't a ride. It was a teenage girl holding an iPhone. "Oh my God," she screamed. "You are the guy from the video, the one who threw the clothes." Hunter tried to hide his face. "Leave me alone," she laughed, driving slowly alongside him, filming. "Look at him, the big bad entrepreneur walking on the side of the road." "Where is your Escalade, bro? Did your sister-in-law take that too?" "Karma is real." She sped off, her laughter trailing in the wind. Hunter knew that video would be online before he even reached the next intersection. It took him 3 hours to walk home. His feet were blistered. His expensive sweatpants were stained with road grime. He was dehydrated and humiliated. He limped up the driveway of the empty house. He kicked the front door open. My parents and Bianca were sitting on the floor in the living room, fanning themselves with junk mail. They looked up when he entered. "Where is the car?" Bianca asked. "Did you get the new one?" Hunter exploded. He screamed so loud the veins in his neck bulged. "There is no car. There is no trade-in." "She took it. She took the damn car." My father stood up. "Who took it?" "Kamara," Hunter roared, throwing his sunglasses against the wall. "She reported it stolen. The police took it at the dealership. I almost went to jail, Winston. I had to walk home. I had to walk 10 miles like a peasant." He pointed a shaking finger at my father. "This is your fault. You told me that car was mine. You told me you bought it. But you didn't buy anything, did you? You just let her pay for it, like you let her pay for everything else. You are useless. You are a useless old man who can't even protect his own family." My father shrank back, his face crumbling. I thought—" "You thought nothing." Hunter spat. "You let a data entry girl play you for a fool. And now look at us. We have nothing." He collapsed onto the floor, burying his face in his hands. The house was silent again, except for the sound of Hunter's ragged breathing and the distant sound of a siren which made them all flinch. They were trapped in a cage of their own making, and the key was in the pocket of the woman they had thrown away. The envelope arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, sliding through the mail slot and landing on the bare hardwood floor with a heavy, expensive thud. In a house stripped of furniture where the echoes of our arguments bounced off the empty walls, that sound was like a gunshot. My mother, Patricia, was the first to reach it. She picked it up with trembling hands, her fingers tracing the embossed gold leaf lettering on the thick cream-colored cardstock. It was addressed to Mr. Hunter Miller and family. Patricia gasped, turning to Hunter, who was sitting on a folding chair staring blankly at his phone, which only worked on the neighbor's stolen Wi-Fi signal. "Hunter, look at this. It is heavy. This is real money." Hunter snatched the envelope. He tore it open, desperate for any sign that his luck was turning. He pulled out a black velvet card with silver engraving. "You are cordially invited to the annual Innovators and Disruptors Gala," he read aloud, his voice gaining strength with every word. "Hosted at the Grand Downtown Ballroom, black tie, exclusive access to the city's top venture capitalists and media moguls." Bianca screamed. "The Innovators Gala. That is the most exclusive event in the city. Tickets are $5,000 a plate. Why did we get this?" Hunter stood up, a smug grin spreading across his face. "Because of the video, Bianca. I told you. Any publicity is good publicity. We are viral. We are disruptors. The elite want to meet us. This is it. This is where I find the angel investor for my startup. This is where we get back on top. My father Winston leaned in, adjusting his glasses. But it is tonight. And it says black tie. We don't have tuxedos. We don't have gowns. And we don't have any money. Hunter waved his hand dismissively. You have no vision, Winston. This is an investment. We need to look the part to get the part. If we walk into that room looking like $1 million, we will walk out with a check for 10 million. We just need seed money for the outfits. That afternoon was a blur of desperate manic energy. Since their credit cards were frozen and bank accounts empty, my family resorted to the only option left. They went to a predatory payday lender in a strip mall on the bad side of town. My father pawned his grandfather's gold watch, the one heirloom he had sworn never to sell, just to secure a high-interest loan of $2,000. It is worth it, Hunter assured him, as Winston signed the papers with a shaking hand. When I get my funding tonight, I will buy you a Rolex. They spent every cent renting a tuxedo for Hunter and Winston, and a flashy sequined gown for Bianca that she found at a high-end rental boutique. My mother wore an old dress she had saved from the 90s, pinning it up to look modern. By 6:00 they were dressed. They stood in the empty living room surrounded by dust bunnies looking like royalty in a ruins. Hunter adjusted his bow tie in the bathroom mirror. Showtime, he whispered to himself. They called an Uber using the last $20 on a prepaid gift card. When they arrived at the grand ballroom, the scene was intimidating. Paparazzi lined the red carpet, flashbulbs popping like lightning storms. Limousines idled at the curb, depositing tech CEOs, famous actors, and politicians. Hunter stepped out of the Uber first, buttoning his jacket. Follow my lead. Chin up. Don't look at the cameras. Let them look at you. They walked onto the red carpet. Bianca posed, waiting for the photographers to scream her name. She threw her head back and smiled her practiced influencer smile, but the cameras did not flash for her. The photographers lowered their lenses, checking their phones or talking to each other. One of them looked at Hunter and frowned. Hey, isn't that the guy from the highway video? The one who walked 10 miles in slides? Hunter grabbed Bianca's arm and pulled her forward. Ignore them. They are tabloids. We are here for the serious money. They reached the check-in desk. A woman with a headset and a clipboard looked them up and down. Name Hunter Miller, he said loudly. And guests. She scanned her list. Ah yes, the Miller party. You are confirmed. Please head inside. The maitre d' will show you to your table. See? Hunter whispered to Winston. We are on the list. We are VIPs. They walked into the ballroom. It was breathtaking. Crystal chandeliers the size of cars hung from the ceiling. A live orchestra played soft jazz. The air smelled of expensive perfume and roasted duck. A tuxedoed waiter approached them. Mr. Miller. Right this way. He led them through the room. They walked past the front tables where the mayor was sitting. They walked past the middle tables where the tech giants were laughing over champagne. They kept walking and walking. Hunter's smile started to fade. Where are we going? The VIP section is back there. The waiter did not answer. He led them all the way to the back of the room, past a large pillar to a small, wobbly table squeezed into the corner. It was directly next to the swinging double doors of the kitchen. Every time a server walked out, a blast of hot air and the smell of dish soap hit the table. On the other side was the entrance to the restrooms. Here you are, the waiter said, placing menus down. Enjoy your evening. Bianca looked around in horror. We are by the toilets. Is this a joke? Hunter grabbed the waiter's arm. Excuse me, there must be a mistake. I am a disruptor. I should be at the front. The waiter pulled his arm away gently but firmly. The seating chart is determined by the platinum sponsors, sir. I cannot change it. He walked away. My mother sank into her chair, clutching her purse. Maybe it is for privacy. Maybe the investors want to meet us where it is quiet. Hunter downed a glass of water nervously. Yeah, that must be it. They don't want to be seen making deals in public. Keep your eyes open." They sat there for an hour. Nobody approached them. Nobody asked for a selfie. The waiters seemed to forget to refill their wine glasses. They watched from a distance as the rest of the room ate lobster and filet mignon, laughing and networking. The isolation was palpable. They were in the room, but they were not of the room. Then the lights dimmed. The orchestra stopped playing. A spotlight hit the center stage. The master of ceremonies walked out to the microphone. His voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a night of vision and transformation. We have gathered here to celebrate those who build empires from nothing. But tonight is special. Tonight, this entire gala has been underwritten by a single mysterious benefactor, a leader in the world of crisis management and strategic dominance." Hunter sat up straight. "This is it. This is the investor." Bianca grabbed her phone ready to record. The MC continued. "This individual values discretion, but tonight she has decided to step into the light. She has a special interest in the concept of toxic assets and how to liquidate them." My father frowned. "Toxic assets? That sounds familiar. Please." The MC roared, raising his hand toward the heavy velvet curtains at the side of the stage. "Put your hands together for our platinum sponsor, the founder and CEO of KM Holdings." The curtains parted. My family leaned forward, straining their eyes in the dark corner by the kitchen. A figure stepped out. She was wearing a blood-red evening gown that hugged every curve, a stark contrast to the sea of black tuxedos. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek, powerful bun. Diamonds glittered at her throat. Real diamonds, not the paste Bianca was wearing. She walked to the center of the stage with the confidence of a predator entering its territory. The spotlight caught her face. My mother gasped so loud it sounded like a choke. Hunter's jaw dropped. The color drained from his face, leaving him looking like a ghost. Bianca dropped her phone into her soup bowl with a splash. Standing there 50 feet away, looking down at the crowd with a smile that was both beautiful and terrifying, was me, Kamara. The room erupted in applause. I looked out into the darkness, scanning the back of the room, until my eyes locked on the table by the toilets. I saw them, small, insignificant, terrified. I leaned into the microphone. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice smooth as silk. "Tonight I want to tell you a story about investment, and about what happens when you invest in the wrong people." I raised my glass directly at the corner table. "Let the show begin." The applause that filled the grand ballroom was thunderous, a wave of sound that washed over me as I stepped out from behind the velvet curtains. The spotlight was blindingly bright hot against my skin, but I did not blink. I had spent 10 years living in the shadows, hiding my success, dimming my light so my family would not feel insecure. Tonight, the shadows were gone. I walked to the center of the stage in a gown that cost more than the cars my brother-in-law dreamed of driving. It was a custom Valentino blood-red silk that flowed like liquid fire around my body. My heels clicked rhythmically against the hardwood stage, a sound that echoed like the ticking of a clock counting down to their destruction. I stopped at the podium and adjusted the microphone. I looked out into the sea of faces. In the front rows, I saw the titans of industry, the people who paid my invoices without blinking. But I looked past them. My eyes found the dark corner near the kitchen doors. I saw them. My family. They looked like terrified children caught in a storm they did not understand. My mother's hand was covering her mouth. My father had taken off his glasses and was wiping them frantically, as if cleaning the lenses would change the reality of what he was seeing. Hunter sat frozen, his mouth slightly open, a piece of bread halfway to his lips. And Bianca, my sister, the influencer, the star. She looked small, she looked ordinary, she looked erased. I leaned into the microphone. The room went silent. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady and commanding. "It is an honor to stand before you tonight as the CEO of KM Holdings. Many of you know my work, but few of you know my face. For a long time, I believed that anonymity was my greatest asset. In crisis management, we are taught to be the invisible hand that fixes the problem. We are the erasers. We make the ugly truths disappear so the beautiful lies can continue. I paused, letting the words sink in. I saw the tech CEO in the front row nod in recognition. He knew exactly what I did. But recently, I continued my gaze drifting back to the corner table. I learned that some crises cannot be managed from the shadows. Some problems are not external threats. They are internal infections. In business, we call them toxic assets. In biology, we call them parasites. I saw Hunter flinch. He knew. He wasn't smart enough to run a company, but he was smart enough to know when he was being hunted. Parasites are fascinating creatures, I said, walking out from behind the podium, taking the microphone with me. They attach themselves to a host. They feed on the host's energy, the host's resources, the host's lifeblood. They do not contribute. They do not build. They simply take. And the most dangerous thing about a parasite is that it convinces the host that they need each other. The parasite whispers that the host is weak, that the host is lucky to have company, that the host owes the parasite for its presence. I walked to the edge of the stage. The spotlight followed me. For 10 years, I allowed a parasitic infection to drain my resources. I told myself it was loyalty. I told myself it was duty. I paid the bills. I bought the cars. I covered the mistakes. I let them live in a house I owned while they treated me like a trespasser in my own life. I let them convince me that I was the lucky one simply because they allowed me to sit at their table. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd. They sensed the drama. They loved it. This was better than any corporate speech. This was blood sport. But a few days ago, I continued, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The parasite made a mistake. It got greedy. It tried to consume the host entirely. And in that moment, the host woke up. I realized that to succeed, truly succeed, you cannot just manage the crisis. You have to eliminate the source. You have to cut the dead weight. You have to evict the infection. I watched the color drain from Bianca's face. She was gripping the tablecloth so hard her knuckles were white. Hunter was shaking. His hand holding a glass of red wine was trembling violently. He tried to set the glass down, but his nerves betrayed him. The glass slipped from his sweaty fingers. Smash! The sound of breaking glass echoed from the back of the room. The red wine exploded outward, splashing all over Bianca's rented silver sequin dress. Bianca shrieked, jumping up. "You idiot! You ruined it! This is a rental!" Heads turned. The spotlight operator, sensing the commotion, swung the light toward the back of the room. Suddenly, my family was illuminated. Hunter looking pathetic in his ill-fitting tuxedo. Bianca frantically wiping wine off her dress, looking like a disaster. My parents cowering in their seats. I smiled. It was a cold, predatory smile. "It seems," I said into the microphone, drawing the attention back to me, "that the cleanup has already begun." The audience laughed. They thought it was a scripted part of the show. They didn't know they were watching a family dissolve in real time. I raised my champagne glass from the podium. "So tonight I would like to propose a toast to independence, to the moment you realize your own worth, and to the freedom that comes when you finally stop feeding the things that are trying to kill you." Cheers! I drank. The audience cheered. I looked directly at Hunter. Our eyes locked across the ballroom. I saw fear in his eyes. Pure, unadulterated fear. He realized in that moment that I wasn't just his sister-in-law. I was the bank. I was the law. I was the sky falling on his head. "Thank you," I said, and turned my back on them. I walked off the stage to thunderous applause. My heart was pounding, not from nerves, but from adrenaline. It was done. The declaration of war was public. I handed the microphone to a stagehand and walked toward the VIP exit. I needed a moment to breathe. I needed to wash the sight of their pathetic faces out of my mind. I headed toward the ladies' lounge, the private one reserved for platinum sponsors. The marble hallway was cool and quiet, a stark contrast to the noise of the ballroom. I walked into the restroom, standing in front of the ornate gold mirror. I looked at myself. The red dress was perfect. The diamonds sparkled. I looked like a queen. But the peace did not last. The door to the restroom burst open. It slammed against the wall with a violent crack. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. I could smell the cheap perfume and the scent of stale wine. Bianca stood in the doorway. Her silver dress was stained purple from chest to knee. Her hair was coming undone. Her mascara was smeared. She looked like a banshee. "You!" she hissed, her voice trembling with rage. I turned slowly, leaning back against the sink, crossing my arms. "Hello, Bianca. Lovely evening, isn't it?" "You planned this?" she screamed, marching toward me. "You planned this whole thing. You knew we would get that invitation. You set us up to be humiliated." I shrugged. "I simply sent an invitation to the head of the household. If you assumed it was for Hunter, that is a reflection of your own sexism, not my plotting." "Shut up!" she yelled, closing the distance between us. She looked like she wanted to hit me, but something in my posture stopped her. She saw the new Kamara and she didn't know how to fight her. "You think you are so special because you have money now," Bianca spat. "You are still just a lonely, bitter spinster. Mom and Dad hate you. Hunter hates you. I hate you. You have nobody." I laughed. It was a genuine laugh. "Oh, Bianca, you still don't get it. I don't need you to like me. I need you to fear me. And judging by the stain on your dress and the terror in your eyes, I would say I have accomplished my goal." She was shaking. "Give me back the house, Kamara. Give me back the car. Turn the money back on, right now. Or I swear to God I will go out there and tell everyone what a monster you are." I stepped forward. I invaded her personal space. I towered over her in my heels. "Go ahead," I whispered. "Go tell them. Tell the investors that your husband is a fraud. Tell them your mother is an enabler. Tell them you are living on charity. Do it. Because the moment you open your mouth, I will release the audit of Hunter's spending. I will release the video of you calling me a freeloader while wearing clothes I paid for. I will bury you under so much legal paperwork you won't be able to breathe until you are 50. Bianca's lip quivered. "You wouldn't. We are family." I leaned down, bringing my face inches from hers. My eyes were cold, dead, and final. "Family?" I asked softly. "Honey, you evicted family on a Sunday night in the rain. Tonight I am just returning the favor." I turned to the mirror, checked my lipstick, and walked past her. "You have 3 days to vacate the property, Bianca," I said over my shoulder. "Don't steal the copper wiring on your way out. I have cameras." I let the heavy door swing shut behind me, leaving my sister sobbing in the bathroom, surrounded by gold and marble, realizing that she was the poorest person in the room. The heavy oak door of the Platinum Lounge restroom clicked shut behind me, sealing out the thunderous applause and the manic energy of the ballroom. For the first time in hours, there was silence. The room was a sanctuary of cream marble and gold fixtures, smelling faintly of orchids and expensive soap. I walked to the row of sinks, my red Valentino gown rustling softly against the floor, like the whisper of a dangerous secret. I turned on the gold tap, watching the water rush over my hands, washing away the invisible residue of the performance I had just given. I looked at myself in the massive, ornate mirror. The woman staring back was not the Kamara who drove a Honda Civic. She was not the Kamara who let her family walk all over her. She was sharp. She was lethal. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with genetics and everything to do with power. I reached into my clutch and pulled out a tube of matte red lipstick. I uncapped it, my hand perfectly steady. Then the piece was shattered. The heavy door flew open with a violent bang, slamming against the marble wall. I did not jump. I did not turn around. I simply met the eyes of the intruder in the mirror. Bianca stood in the doorway, breathing hard, her chest heaving. She looked like a catastrophe. The silver sequin dress she had rented, the one she swore would make her look like a star, was ruined. A massive dark purple stain from Hunter's spilled wine stretched from her chest down to her thigh, looking like a fresh bruise. Her hair, usually sprayed into stiff perfection, was coming loose. Her mascara was smeared beneath her eyes. She looked at me, and I could see her brain trying to process the disconnect. She was trying to reconcile the sister she bullied with the woman standing at the sink wearing $50,000 worth of diamonds. You, she hissed, stepping into the room. The door swung shut slowly behind her. I leaned forward carefully, applying a fresh coat of red to my lips. I smacked them together gently, checking the symmetry. "Hello, Bianca," I said, my voice calm and conversational. "You might want to dab that stain with club soda. Red wine sets quickly on cheap fabric." She let out a strangled scream and marched toward me, her heels clicking aggressively on the marble. "Stop it! Stop acting like you are some kind of royalty. Who are you sleeping with, Kamara? That is the only explanation. Who is paying for all of this? Is it one of those old men in the ballroom? Did you find yourself a sugar daddy so you could come here and embarrass us?" I turned slowly to face her. I leaned back against the cool marble counter, crossing my arms over my chest. The accusation was so predictable it was almost boring. "I am the CEO of KM Holdings, Bianca. I don't sleep with the money. I am the money." "Liar!" she shrieked, her voice echoing off the tile walls. "You are a data entry clerk. You make $30,000 a year. You drive a piece of junk car. Mom and Dad pay for the roof over your head. You are nothing but a fraud in a rented dress." I let out a low, dry laugh. "It is fascinating, isn't it? You have spent so many years convincing yourself that I am worthless, that you literally cannot see the reality standing in front of you. This dress is not rented, Bianca. It is custom. And unlike your husband, I don't finance my life on credit cards I can't pay." She stepped closer, invading my personal space. She smelled of stale wine and desperation. "You think this is funny? You think it is funny to humiliate Hunter? He is a visionary. He is going to change the world, and you just made him look like a clumsy idiot in front of potential investors." "He made himself look like an idiot," I corrected her. "Gravity did the rest." She reached out and grabbed my bare arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. "You are going to go back out there. You are going to get back on that stage, and you are going to tell everyone that it was a joke. You are going to tell them that Hunter is your partner. You are going to fix this, Kamara. Or so help me God, I will destroy you." I looked down at her hand gripping my arm. Then I looked up at her eyes. My expression went cold. Dead cold. "Take your hand off me," I said softly. There was something in my voice, a vibration of pure threat that made her flinch. She let go of my arm as if it were hot iron. "You want to talk about destruction?" I asked, taking a step toward her. Bianca took a step back. "Let's talk about your little video, the one you posted on Sunday, the one where you threw my clothes in the mud." She regained a bit of her arrogance, sneering at me. "Oh, are you still crying about that? It went viral, Kamara. 2 million views. Everyone knows you are a leech. I own the narrative now." I smiled. It was the smile of a shark sensing blood in the water. "You don't own the narrative, Bianca. You own a lawsuit." Her brow furrowed. "What? My lawyer filed the paperwork this morning," I said, examining my manicure. "Defamation of character, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. And since you monetized the video, I am also suing for damages related to commercial exploitation of my image without consent." She laughed, but it sounded nervous. "You can't sue me. We are family. And besides, you can't afford a lawyer." I took another step toward her. "My attorney is Marcus Thorne. He charges $500 an hour. And he has been working on your case for 48 hours straight. Do the math, Bianca. Every time you open your mouth, the bill gets higher. And since you and Hunter share assets, or lack thereof, his little startup fund is going to be drained before he even prints his business cards." Bianca's face went pale. The reality was starting to sink in. She knew who Marcus Thorne was. Everyone in the city knew him. He was the shark that ate other sharks. You wouldn't," she stammered. "Mom will never forgive you. Mom is named in the lawsuit too," I said cheerfully, "for aiding and abetting." Bianca looked like she was going to be sick. She backed up until her legs hit a velvet bench and she sank down onto it, the fight draining out of her. "Why are you doing this?" she whispered, tears finally spilling over, mixing with the smeared mascara. "We are your family. We took you in. We let you live in our house." I stopped. The air in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. "Your house," I repeated. "Yes, our house," she cried, grasping at straws. "The house Mom and Dad own. The house where you lived rent-free for 10 years while I built a career. You owe us, Kamara." I walked over to her. I bent down until my face was level with hers. I was so close, I could see the cracks in her foundation. "I think there is something you need to know." I whispered, my voice smooth and terrifyingly gentle. "You should ask Dad about Grandpa Marcus's will." She blinked, confused. "What, Grandpa left everything to Dad?" "Dad told us." "Dad lied," I said. "Grandpa Marcus knew Dad was bad with money. He knew Mom was an enabler. And he knew you were spoiled. So he left the estate to the only person who actually visited him in the nursing home." Her eyes widened. "No." "Yes," I hissed. "The house you sleep in. The house you kicked me out of. The house you are currently destroying with your husband's cheap renovation ideas. It doesn't belong to Winston. It doesn't belong to Patricia. And it certainly doesn't belong to you." I stood up, towering over her. "It belongs to the KM Trust. And guess who the sole trustee is?" Bianca shook her head, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "No, that is impossible." "Dad said." "Dad pays rent." "Bianca," I interrupted. "Or rather, he did, until he violated the lease agreement by allowing an unauthorized tenant named Hunter to run a business on the premises. And by damaging the property, and by evicting the landlord." I checked my diamond watch. "You have roughly 48 hours before the sheriff arrives to enforce the eviction notice I signed this morning. I suggest you start packing, and this time try not to throw your things on the lawn. It looks tacky." I turned my back on her. I walked toward the heavy oak door. "Kamara, wait!" she screamed, standing up, reaching out to me. "Please, we have nowhere to go." I paused with my hand on the brass handle. I looked back at her one last time. She looked small, pathetic, broken. I remembered the rain on my face. I remembered the laughter. I remembered the quilt in the mud. "You are an influencer, Bianca," I said coldly. "I am sure you can find a bridge to sleep under. Think of the content." I opened the door and walked out, leaving my sister sobbing in the golden light of the restroom, realizing that the floor she was standing on had never been solid ground at all. The ride back from the gala was a funeral procession for our collective dignity. We sat crammed into the back of the economy Uber, the smell of stale pine air freshener mixing with the scent of Hunter's nervous sweat and the spilled wine that was drying into a sticky crust on Bianca's silver dress. Nobody spoke. The driver, sensing the radioactive tension radiating from the back seat, kept the radio off. The silence was suffocating. Every time the streetlights flickered over our faces, I could see the rage boiling just beneath Hunter's skin. My father Winston stared out the window, his jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might shatter. My mother Patricia was weeping silently, dabbing at her eyes with a crumpled cocktail napkin she had stolen from the bar. When the car pulled up to the house, it looked like a tomb. It was the only house on the street with no lights on. The darkness seemed to swallow it whole. The moment the Uber drove away, Hunter exploded. "Open the door, Winston," he snarled, his voice raw and dangerous. "Open the damn door!" My father fumbled with his keys in the dark. His hands were shaking so badly he dropped them twice. "Hurry up!" Hunter screamed, kicking the siding of the house. Finally, the lock clicked. We stumbled into the pitch-black hallway. The air inside was stale and hot. The air conditioning had been off for 2 days now. "Where are the papers?" Hunter demanded, clicking on his phone flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness like a knife, landing directly on my father's face. "What papers?" Winston whispered, shielding his eyes. "The deed, the title, the will," Hunter yelled, pushing past him into the living room. Kamara said something about a trust. She said something about Grandpa Marcus. You told me you inherited this house free and clear. You told me you owned it. Was she lying, Winston? Or were you? My mother grabbed Hunter's arm. Honey, please calm down. Kamara is just trying to scare us. She is a manipulator. She learned some fancy legal words and thinks she can… Shut up, Patricia Hunter roared, shaking her off. I am done listening to you. I want to see the proof. Where do you keep the files? My father sighed, a sound of total defeat. In my study, bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Hunter didn't wait. He marched down the hall, the beam of his flashlight bouncing off the bare walls. We followed him like prisoners walking to the gallows. The study was a mess. Hunter had already ransacked it looking for cash a few days ago. Papers were strewn everywhere. He went to the metal filing cabinet in the corner and ripped the bottom drawer open. He began grabbing handfuls of manila folders, throwing them onto the floor. Tax returns, medical bills, old greeting cards. Where is it? Hunter shouted, tossing a stack of utility bills over his shoulder. Here, my father said softly. He reached into the back of the drawer and pulled out a thick blue legal folder. It was dusty. It hadn't been touched in a decade. Hunter snatched it from him. He threw it onto the desk and shined his light on the cover page. Last Will and Testament of Marcus T. Miller. Hunter read aloud. He flipped the page. His eyes scanned the legal jargon frantically. Bianca was leaning over his shoulder, her breath hitching. Article 4, Real Property, Hunter muttered. Here it is. He went silent. The only sound in the room was the crinkling of the paper as his grip tightened on the document. Read it, Bianca whispered. What does it say? Hunter looked up. His face was a mask of pure horror. I give, devise, and bequeath the property located at 442 Oak Street to my granddaughter Kamara Miller, to be held in the KM Trust for her sole benefit. Bianca gasped. No, that can't be right. Grandpa loved me. I was the favorite. Hunter ignored her. He kept reading. However, I grant a lifetime tenancy to my son Winston Miller and his wife Patricia Miller, allowing them to reside in the property, rent-free for the duration of their natural lives. See? My mother cried out, clutching her chest. See, we have a right to be here. Lifetime tenancy. Kamara can't kick us out. Keep reading, Patricia Hunter yelled, slamming his hand onto the desk. Read the condition. He pointed to a paragraph at the bottom of the page. The letters were bold and clear. This tenancy is conditional upon the requirement that Winston and Patricia Miller maintain the property in good standing, and most importantly, treat the trustee Kamara Miller with the respect and kindness due to family. Should at any point they attempt to exclude, harm, or financially exploit the trustee, or should they attempt to alter the property without her written consent, this tenancy shall be immediately revoked, and the property shall revert to the sole possession of the trustee. The silence that followed was deafening. You knew, Hunter whispered, looking at my father. You knew the whole time. You knew that the only reason you had a roof over your head was because Kamara allowed it. You knew that if you treated her badly, you would lose everything. And you let me kick her out. You watched me throw her clothes in the mud. You watched me humiliate the one person who held the keys to your survival. My father sank into the desk chair, burying his face in his hands. I thought she wouldn't do it. She was always so quiet. She was always so obedient. I didn't think she had it in her to enforce it. Hunter turned to my mother. And you… Did you know? Patricia looked at the floor. She picked at a loose thread on her old dress. Answer me, Hunter screamed. Yes, Patricia sobbed. Yes, I knew Grandpa Marcus told me the day he signed it. He said he didn't trust us with money. He said Kamara was the only one with a head for business. Then why did you lie to me? Hunter asked, his voice shaking. Why did you tell me this house was yours? Why did you let me marry Bianca thinking she came with assets? Patricia looked up, tears streaming down her face. Because we wanted you to marry her. We knew you wouldn't look twice at her if you knew we were broke. We knew you wanted a family with status. So we pretended. We thought if you married Bianca, you would become successful, and then it wouldn't matter who owned the house, because you would buy us a mansion." Bianca let out a strangled cry. "You bought him. You used a house you didn't own to buy me a husband." Hunter looked at Bianca with disgust. He looked at her ruined dress, her messy hair, her tear-stained face. "I married a fraud," he spat. "I married into a family of con artists. You have nothing. You are nothing." He threw the will onto the floor. "I am done," Hunter said. "I am leaving. I am getting an annulment. I am not going down with this ship." He turned toward the door. Bianca grabbed his arm. "You can't leave me. We are partners. Get off me." Hunter shoved her away. She stumbled back and hit the wall. Suddenly, a bright light flashed outside the window. Everyone froze. Another flash. Then the sound of a heavy engine idling in the driveway. "Is that the police?" my father whispered. Hunter walked to the window and peered through the blinds. "It is a van," he said. "A dark van." Someone walked up the porch steps. We heard the heavy tread of boots, then a sharp slapping sound against the front glass. Then the footsteps walked away. Hunter went to the front door. He opened it slowly. Taped to the storm door right at eye level was a thick envelope. The red stamp on the front was visible even in the dim light of the street lamps. Hunter pulled it down. He ripped it open. He walked back into the living room holding the paper like it was a death sentence. "What is it?" my mother asked. Hunter dropped the paper onto the coffee table. "It is a subpoena," he said, his voice hollow, "and a notice to vacate. We have 24 hours to get out. The sheriff is coming tomorrow at noon to change the locks." He looked at my parents, then at Bianca. "And Kamara is suing us for back rent. 10 years of back rent, including interest." "How much?" my father whispered. Hunter looked at the figure at the bottom of the page. $400,000. My mother fainted. She simply crumpled to the floor in a heap of old fabric. My father stared at the wall catatonic. Bianca started screaming a high, thin sound of pure panic. Hunter just stood there in the dark, laughing softly. It was the laugh of a man who realized the joke was on him, and the punchline was going to cost him his entire life. The morning sun filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my corner office, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I sat behind my mahogany desk, sipping a cup of black coffee that cost more than the hourly wage my family thought I earned. On my computer screen, the digital clock read 9 in the morning. To the rest of the city, it was just the start of another Tuesday. But for my sister Bianca, it was the beginning of the end. I picked up my phone and dialed Marcus Thorne, my lead attorney. "Is it done?" I asked. His voice was deep and satisfied. "The process server just pulled up to the curb, Kamara. They are signing for the package right now." I hung up and leaned back in my leather chair. I switched my monitor to the feed from the security cameras still hidden in the living room of the house on Oak Street. The scene was chaotic. My family was awake, but they looked like survivors of a shipwreck. They were huddled in the empty living room on the floor, surrounded by suitcases. Hunter was pacing. Bianca was staring at her phone, frantically deleting negative comments from her social media. Then the doorbell rang. My father, Winston, got up to answer it. He opened the door to reveal a man in a nondescript gray suit, holding a thick stack of papers bound with a heavy rubber band. "Bianca Miller?" the man asked. My father stepped aside, and Bianca walked to the door looking exhausted and wary. "Yes," she asked. "You have been served," the man said, shoving the papers into her chest. He turned and walked away before she could even process what was happening. Bianca looked down at the documents. Her hands shook as she tore off the rubber band. "What is it?" Hunter asked, walking over to her. "Is it the eviction notice?" "We already know about that." Bianca flipped to the first page. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. "It is a lawsuit," she whispered. She walked back into the living room and dropped the stack onto the floor. It landed with a heavy thud that echoed in the empty house. "Kamara is suing me," she said, her voice trembling. Hunter laughed nervously. Suing you for what emotional distress? We can fight that. It is, he said, she said. Bianca shook her head. No. She is suing me for defamation of character, invasion of privacy, misappropriation of likeness for commercial gain, and intentional interference with prospective economic advantage. Hunter frowned. What does that even mean? It means she is saying my video cost her money, Bianca screamed. She is saying that by posting lies about her, I damaged her professional reputation as a crisis manager. She says her company lost potential contracts because of the negative publicity I generated. How much, my mother asked from the corner. How much does she want? Bianca flipped to the last page. She stared at the number. She blinked, hoping it was a hallucination. $5 million, she choked out. The room went silent. $5 million. It was a number so large it didn't even feel real to them. It was monopoly money. She is crazy, Hunter yelled. We don't have $5 million. We don't even have $500. That is the point, I whispered to myself in my office. Back in the house, Bianca's phone began to ring. It wasn't a call. It was an email notification. Then another. Then another. She picked up her phone. Her face went pale. It is Fit Life Tea, she said. They are canceling the partnership. They say they cannot be associated with a creator involved in high-profile litigation regarding fraud and defamation. Another ping. It is the fashion brand, she cried. They are demanding I return the clothes they sent yesterday. Another ping. It is the agency. The influencer agency I just signed with. They are dropping me. They say I am a liability. In the span of 10 minutes, the career Bianca thought she had built, the empire she thought she was creating on the back of my humiliation, evaporated. The brands ran for the hills. Nobody wants to sponsor a woman who is being sued by a corporate shark for $5 million. I have to fix this, Bianca said, panic rising in her voice. I have to control the narrative. That is what Kamara would do. I need to get the fans on my side. If the public supports me, the brands will come back. She grabbed her ring light, which was leaning against the wall. She set it up in front of the window for natural light. She messed up her hair to look more distressed. She rubbed her eyes to make them look redder. Hunter, hold the phone, she commanded. She hit the go live button. Hey guys, she said, her voice breaking into a practiced sob. I didn't want to do this video, but I am just so heartbroken. My sister, the one we took in, the one we loved, she is suing us. She is suing her own family for $5 million just because we asked her to move out so my husband could work. She is trying to bankrupt us. She is a monster. I watched the live stream from my office computer. The view count was climbing. People love a train wreck. But then something shifted. I opened a separate window and typed a message to my team. Release the hounds. My team had spent the last 24 hours locating people from Bianca's past. Not hard to do. Bianca had been a bully her entire life. High school classmates she had tormented. Baristas she had thrown coffee at. Former assistants she had underpaid. They all started commenting at once. One comment popped up, "Is this the same Bianca who made fun of my eating disorder in 11th grade? You haven't changed." Another appeared. "I remember you. You tried to get me fired from Starbucks because I put too much ice in your latte. You are the monster." And another, "I lived next door to you guys for years. Kamara was the only one who ever mowed the lawn or took out the trash. You treated her like a servant." The tide was turning. The chat, which was usually full of heart emojis and support, was now filled with snake emojis and the hashtag by Bianca. Bianca saw the comments. Her crying stopped being an act and became real. "Why are they saying these things?" she wailed. "Hunter, block them. Block them all." "I can't," Hunter yelled, tapping furiously. "There are too many of them. It is a mob." Then came the final blow. My lawyer Marcus sent an email directly to Bianca's phone. The subject line was simply, "Evidence Exhibit A." Bianca saw the notification pop up on her screen while she was still live. "What is that?" Hunter asked. Bianca opened the email. It was a video file. She clicked play. The audio played loudly through the phone, broadcasting to her thousands of live viewers. It was a video from the security camera in the living room, dated 2 hours before the eviction. In the video, Bianca was standing in front of the mirror holding a bottle of water. She was practicing her crying face. "Okay," she said to her reflection in the video. "I need to look sadder. If I cry hard enough, the video will go viral. We can title it, 'Toxic Sister Evicted.' The algorithm loves family drama." Hunter's voice came from off-camera in the video. "Make sure you mention that she is a freeloader. People hate freeloaders. It will get more engagement." Bianca in the video laughed. "Oh, totally. I will destroy her. I will make sure she never shows her face in this town again." The video ended. In the real living room, silence descended. On the live stream, the chat exploded. Caught in 4K. She staged it. She admitted she wanted to destroy her sister. She is a sociopath. Bianca stared at the phone. Her face was gray. She realized that she had just played the evidence of her own malice to 50,000 people. She scrambled to end the live stream, fumbling with the phone, dropping it on the floor. "It is over," Hunter whispered. He backed away from her. "You admitted it. You admitted it on camera. It was a private conversation," Bianca screamed. "She recorded us." "That is illegal." "Actually," I said to the empty air in my office, "it is perfectly legal. You are in a house owned by my trust, and the lease agreement clearly states that security cameras are in operation in common areas. You signed it. Dad signed it. You just never read it." I picked up my phone again. Phase 2 complete. Execute Phase 3. Back at the house, Bianca decided she needed to leave. She needed to run. She needed comfort. "I am going to get a coffee," she sobbed. "I need to get out of here." She grabbed her purse and ran out the door to her car. She drove to the nearest drive-through, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. She pulled up to the window. "That will be $6.50, the cashier said. Bianca tapped her debit card against the reader. Beep. Declined. She frowned. "That is impossible. I have money in there." She tapped it again. Beep. Declined. "Try this one," she said, pulling out another card. Beep. Declined. She pulled out her banking app. She logged in. Her eyes went wide. Every single account, her checking, her savings, even the joint account she shared with Hunter, had a bright red lock icon next to it. The balance read $0, frozen by court order. The cashier looked at her impatiently. "Ma'am, do you have another form of payment?" Bianca stared at the screen. She had no cash. She had no credit. She had no reputation. She realized then that the lawsuit wasn't just a threat, it was a cage, and the door had just slammed shut. She put the car in reverse and backed out of the drive-thru, her stomach growling, her head pounding, driving back to an empty house that she had to vacate in 24 hours, to a husband who hated her, and a future that had been completely obliterated by the sister she thought was nothing. The silence in the house was not peaceful. It was the silence of a bomb waiting to detonate. The mid-afternoon sun cast long, harsh shadows across the empty living room floor, where my family was camped out like refugees in their own home. The lawsuit papers lay scattered on the hardwood like fallen leaves, a constant reminder of the $5 million weight hanging over their heads. But the true storm had not even made landfall yet. I sat in my office across town watching the security feed on my second monitor. I had sent the final package an hour ago. My private investigator, a man who could find dirt on a saint, had compiled a dossier on Hunter Miller that was thick enough to be a weapon. I took a sip of my coffee. It was time for Bianca to meet the man she really married. Back at the house, a courier motorcycle pulled up to the curb. The rider walked up the path and pounded on the door. Hunter was the one pacing the room, muttering to himself about countersuits and defamation. He didn't answer the door. He was too busy rehearsing his victim's speech. "Get the door, Bianca," he snapped. It is probably another one of your sister's scare tactics. Bianca stood up slowly. Her eyes were red-rimmed and swollen. She walked to the door and opened it. The courier handed her a thick yellow envelope. It was heavy. "Sign here," he said. She signed with a trembling hand. The courier left. Bianca stood in the doorway staring at the return address. It wasn't from a law firm. It was from Heavy Investigations, LLC. "What is it?" Hunter asked, stopping his pacing. "It is addressed to me," Bianca whispered. "But it says regarding Hunter Miller." Hunter froze. His face went pale, losing the flush of anger he had maintained all morning. "Give that to me," he demanded, stepping forward with his hand outstretched. "That is my private property." Bianca pulled the envelope back against her chest. Her eyes narrowed. For the first time in her life, she looked at her husband not with adoration, but with suspicion. "No," she said, her voice shaking but firm. "It is addressed to me. And after everything that has happened in the last 48 hours, I think I have a right to know what is in it." She ripped the tab open before he could reach her. She pulled out a stack of documents clipped together. The top page was a photo of Hunter. But it wasn't a headshot for a magazine. It was a mugshot. Bianca gasped. Hunter lunged for the papers, but she scrambled back, putting the kitchen island between them. She read the text under the photo. "Arrested 3 years ago. DUI. Possession of controlled substances. Charges dropped due to a procedural error." "You told me you were at a coding boot camp in San Francisco that month," Bianca said, looking up at him. Hunter laughed nervously, wiping sweat from his upper lip. "That is old news, Bianca. A mistake. I was young. It has nothing to do with my business." Bianca flipped the page. This was a document from a company called Nexus Solutions. "Termination notice," she read aloud. "Reason for termination: gross misconduct, sexual harassment of 3 junior female employees, embezzlement of company funds totaling $12,000. Hunter slammed his hand on the counter. "Stop reading. That company was corrupt. They framed me because I was too talented. They were threatened by my vision." Bianca ignored him. She was flipping through the pages faster now. Her breath was coming in short, sharp gasps. "Here's a bank statement," she said. "It is from an offshore account in the Cayman Islands." She scanned the columns of numbers. Her eyes went wide. "Transfers from joint account ending in 4098. That is Kamara's card. $5,000, $3,000, $10,000. She looked at the dates. "Hunter, this transfer was last month. You told me you needed that money for server costs. You told me the investors required a buy-in." She flipped to the next page. It was a gambling website statement. FanDuel, DraftKings, CryptoBet. "You lost it," she whispered. "You didn't invest it. You didn't build a company. You gambled it. You gambled away the money my sister was working to earn." Hunter's face twisted into something ugly. He wasn't the charming visionary anymore. He was a cornered rat. "It was an investment strategy," he screamed. "I was trying to double our capital. I was doing it for us. If I had won, we would be living in a mansion right now." "But you lost," Bianca screamed back. "You lost $500,000 over 5 years. You have been unemployed since 2019. You go to Starbucks every day and pretend to work, but you are just playing poker on your phone." She threw the papers at him. They fluttered through the air like snow, landing all over the kitchen floor. "You are a fraud, Hunter. You are a liar. And you are a thief. You stole from my sister. You stole from my parents. And you lied to me every single day of our marriage." Hunter stood there, his chest heaving. The truth was out. The mask was gone. There was no more tech CEO facade to hide behind. There was just a 38-year-old failure who had been exposed by the very people he thought were too stupid to catch him. My mother, Patricia, stood in the corner of the room clutching her chest. "Oh my God," she moaned. "Hunter, tell me it isn't true. Tell me you didn't steal from us." "Shut up, old woman," Hunter roared, turning on her. "You are just as bad." You wanted to believe the lie. You wanted a rich son-in-law so bad you didn't care where the money came from. You saw the cars, you saw the clothes, and you didn't ask questions because you are greedy. He turned back to Bianca. He walked toward her slowly. His eyes were dark and hollow. And you? He sneered. You think you are innocent? You liked the lifestyle, didn't you? You liked the expensive dinners. You liked the designer bags. You didn't care that Kamara was paying for them. You helped me spend it. You are just a parasite. Bianca, just like your sister said, I am leaving you. Bianca said, her voice trembling. I am calling the police. I am showing them these papers. You are going to jail. Hunter stopped. He looked at her with a chilling calmness. No, you are not, he said. Yes, I am, Bianca yelled, reaching for her phone on the counter. Hunter moved faster than anyone expected. He lunged forward. Smack! The sound of his hand connecting with Bianca's face echoed through the empty house like a gunshot. It was a hard, brutal slap. Bianca flew backward, hitting the refrigerator before sliding down to the floor. She held her cheek, staring up at him in shock. Blood trickled from the corner of her lip. Hunter stood over her. His hand raised, his breathing ragged. You don't talk to me like that, he hissed. I am the man of this house. I am the reason you have a name. My mother screamed. It was a primal sound of terror. She scrambled toward the landline phone on the wall. I am calling 911, she shrieked. Get away from her, you monster! Patricia grabbed the receiver. She punched in the numbers. 911. She pressed the phone to her ear, waiting for the reassuring voice of the operator. She waited for help. She waited for the police to come and save them from the nightmare they had invited into their home. But there was no voice. There was no ringtone. There was only a dead, hollow silence. Patricia pulled the phone away and looked at it. She tapped the hook switch frantically. Click, click, click. Nothing. She looked at the wall jack. The cord was plugged in. Then she remembered. The bill. The bill was part of the bundle. The bundle Kamara paid for. The bundle Kamara had canceled 2 days ago. The phone service was cut. Patricia looked up at Hunter. He was smiling now, a cruel, twisted smile. He looked at the dead phone in her hand. She cut the line, didn't she? Hunter laughed softly. Your precious daughter, the one you treated like dirt. She cut the line to save money. He turned back to Bianca, who was cowering on the floor. Looks like nobody is coming to save you, he said. He reached down and grabbed Bianca by her hair. Now get up. We are going to find where your father keeps his emergency cash. And you are going to help me. I watched from my office, my hand hovering over my own phone. I saw the violence. I saw the fear. I saw the moment they realized that without me they were completely vulnerable. I picked up my cell phone. I dialed the direct line to the police captain, a man whose career I had saved last year. Captain, I said, my voice calm and icy. I need to report a domestic disturbance in progress at 442 Oak Street. Send a unit and tell them the suspect is dangerous. I hung up and looked at the screen. You wanted a man who takes charge? Bianca, I whispered. You got him. The elevator doors to the 30th floor of the KM Holdings building slid open with a soft, expensive chime. From behind my desk, I watched them walk in. My parents, Winston and Patricia, looked like shadows of the people who had screamed at me just 48 hours ago. My father was wearing a wrinkled suit jacket over a t-shirt, clearly something he had pulled out of a laundry pile. My mother was clutching her purse with both hands, her eyes darting around the sleek modern office as if she expected a trap door to open beneath her feet. They approached the glass wall of my office. My assistant Sarah stood up to block them, but I waved her off. Let them in, I said through the intercom. They stepped inside. The air conditioning was humming low and steady. I did not stand up. I did not offer them water. I did not smile. I sat in my high-backed leather chair, my hands folded on top of a pristine manila folder, watching them with the detached curiosity of a scientist observing specimens in a jar. Kamara. My mother breathed, her voice cracking. She took a step forward, reaching out as if to hug me. Oh, thank God. We were so worried about you. I held up one hand. Stop right there. She froze. The rejection hit her physically. She pulled her hands back and clasped them together. Sit, I said, gesturing to the two uncomfortable chairs on the other side of the desk. They sat. My father looked at the view of the city skyline behind me, avoiding my eyes. My mother looked at me with a desperate, pleading intensity. We came to work this out, honey. Patricia began, her voice trembling. Things have gotten out of hand. The police, the lawsuit, the frozen accounts. It is too much. We are a family. We shouldn't be fighting like this in public. I raised an eyebrow. We are not fighting, Patricia. I am litigating. There is a difference. My father cleared his throat. Kamara, listen. We know we made mistakes. Hunter, he manipulated us. He told us so many lies. We didn't know about his past. We didn't know about the gambling. We were victims too. I leaned forward. You were victims of your own greed, Winston. Do not blame the con artist for the fact that you were desperate to be conned. You wanted a rich son-in-law so badly that you ignored every red flag. You let him take over the house. You let him disrespect me. You let him throw my things in the mud. That was the heat of the moment, my mother cried. We were stressed. We didn't mean it. You know how much we love you. You are our baby girl. We raised you. We sacrificed for you. Doesn't that count for anything? Blood is thicker than water, Kamara. You can't just throw your parents out on the street. I stared at her. The audacity was breathtaking. She was playing the same old song, the anthem of toxic families everywhere. The idea that sharing DNA gives you a license to abuse someone forever. I opened the folder on my desk. I pulled out a single sheet of paper. You talk about blood, I said quietly. But Sunday night, when I was standing in the rain looking at you through a camera lens, I didn't see blood. I saw strangers. I saw 3 people who were happy to see me homeless. I didn't mean it, Patricia sobbed. I was trying to support Hunter. I thought he was doing what was best for the family. I spun my computer monitor around so they could see the screen. Let's review the tape, shall we? I said. I clicked play. The video filled the screen. It was the footage from Bianca's Instagram Live, the one that had started this entire war. On the screen, my mother's face appeared. She was standing on the porch, dry and comfortable, while I stood in the rain. In the video, Patricia looked directly at the camera and said, I gave her everything. We sacrificed so much for her, but she just takes and takes. We had no choice. I paused the video on her face. I paused it right on the moment of her lie. I looked at the real Patricia sitting in my office. You had no choice, I repeated. You had a choice when Grandpa Marcus died. You had a choice when you read his will. You knew the house belonged to me. You knew your tenancy was conditional on treating me with respect. You chose to lie to Hunter. You chose to hide the deed. And on Sunday night, you chose to humiliate me to boost Bianca's engagement numbers. My father put his head in his hands. Please, Kamara, stop. No, I said, my voice rising. You want to invoke family? Let's look at the family budget. For 10 years, I paid the mortgage on a house I wasn't allowed to decorate. I paid for cars I wasn't allowed to drive. I paid for vacations I wasn't invited to. I was the family ATM. And the moment you thought you found a new ATM in Hunter, you tried to throw me away like a broken appliance. But Hunter is a fraud. My mother wailed. We know that now. We need you, Kamara. We need you back. You don't need me, I corrected her. You need my money. You need my credit score. You need my house. I turned the monitor back around. I picked up a heavy fountain pen. Family is a verb. Patricia, it is an action. It is protection. It is loyalty. And that family died on Sunday night. It died the moment you watched your son-in-law destroy Grandma's quilt, and you didn't say a word. I looked down at the document in front of me. It was the official eviction order, drafted by the city sheriff's office, waiting for the owner's final signature to authorize the use of force. "Kamara, please," my father whispered. "Where will we go? We have no money. We are old." "You have Social Security," I said coldly. "And I gave you a check for $10,000. That is enough for a deposit on a small apartment. I suggest you start looking in the suburbs. The rent is cheaper there." I uncapped the pen. "But what about Bianca?" my mother asked. "She is leaving Hunter. She is coming back to us." "Then she can sleep on your couch," I said, "just like you told me to sleep in the basement." I signed my name at the bottom of the document. The scratch of the pen against the paper sounded like a knife cutting through bone. It was done. The legal seal was set. I closed the folder and handed it to my assistant, who had quietly entered the room. "Take this to the sheriff," I instructed. "Tell them to execute it immediately." Sarah nodded and took the folder. She looked at my parents. "Please follow me. I will escort you out." My mother stayed in her chair. She looked at me with eyes full of shock. She couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that her guilt trip, her tears, her manipulation had finally hit a wall. It couldn't break. "You can't do this," she whispered. "God will punish you for this. Honor thy father and mother." I stood up. I buttoned my blazer. I looked down at them from my tower of glass and steel. "I honored you for 30 years," I said. "Now I am honoring myself. Get out of my office." My father stood up slowly, pulling my mother by the arm. "Come on, Patricia. It is over." They walked toward the door. My mother looked back one last time. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked terrified. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that the safety net she had slashed was the only thing keeping her from hitting the ground. The door clicked shut behind them. I sat back down. I was alone in the quiet hum of my success. My hands were not shaking. My heart was not racing. I felt a profound, heavy sense of peace. I picked up my phone and dialed the building security. "This is Ms. Miller in Suite 300. I have just concluded a meeting. Please ensure that Winston and Patricia Miller are escorted off the premises and their photos are added to the Do Not Admit list." "Copy that, Ms. Miller." I hung up. The mediation had failed because there was nothing left to mediate. You cannot negotiate with a cancer. You can only cut it out. And I had just performed the final surgery. The courtroom smelled of floor wax, old wood, and the stale sweat of desperate people. It was 9 in the morning on a Thursday, but inside Department 42 of the Superior Court, the air was thick with the heavy atmosphere of Judgment Day. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my spine pressed against the back of the oak chair. I was wearing a navy blue power suit that cost more than the car my brother-in-law was currently driving, or rather, the car he used to drive before I had it towed. Next to me sat Marcus Thorne, my attorney. He was calm, flipping through a file that was 3 inches thick. On the other side of the aisle, the defense table looked like a shipwreck. My sister Bianca sat with her head down, picking at a loose thread on her sweater. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Next to her, Hunter stood alone. He had no lawyer. He had told the clerk earlier that he would represent himself because lawyers were part of the corrupt system designed to keep visionaries like him down. In reality, he just couldn't afford one. He was wearing the same suit he had worn to the gala 2 nights ago. It was wrinkled, stained with sweat, and looked pathetic under the harsh fluorescent lights. "All rise," the bailiff boomed. "The Honorable Judge Reynolds presiding." We stood. Judge Reynolds was a woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen every lie a human being could tell. She sat down, adjusted her glasses, and looked at the docket. "Miller versus Miller." She read, her voice dry. "We are here for a summary judgment hearing regarding claims of defamation, fraud, and unlawful detainer." Hunter jumped up before she even finished. "Your Honor, I object." Judge Reynolds looked over her glasses. "You object to the case being called, Mr. Miller. I object to the premise." Hunter shouted, puffing out his chest. "This entire trial is a sham. It is a witch hunt orchestrated by a vindictive woman who is jealous of my success and my wife's beauty. I demand that you dismiss these charges and sanction her for wasting the court's time." The judge sighed. "Mr. Miller, you are representing yourself pro se. That does not give you permission to make opening statements during roll call." "Sit down." Hunter sat muttering loud enough for the microphone to catch. "Biased. Unbelievable." "Mr. Thorne, you may proceed," the judge said to my lawyer. Marcus stood up. He didn't shout, he didn't pace. He simply laid out the facts like he was arranging silverware. "Your Honor, over the past 5 years, the defendants Hunter and Bianca Miller have engaged in a systematic campaign to defraud my client Kamara Miller. They lived in her property, rent-free under false pretenses. They utilized her credit lines without authorization. And when my client attempted to sever these financial ties, they retaliated with a public smear campaign designed to destroy her professional reputation. We have submitted video evidence of the defendant admitting to staging the event for viral engagement." "Lies," Hunter screamed, slamming his hand on the table. Bianca jumped. "It was content creation. It is art. She doesn't understand the digital economy." "Mr. Miller, one more outburst and I will hold you in contempt," the judge warned. Hunter stood up again, his face turning red. "But you aren't listening. She is the one who owes us. I gave this family relevance. I gave them a brand. Before me, they were nobody. I married her sister when nobody else would. I emancipated them from their mediocrity." The courtroom went silent. The racism in his statement hung in the air like toxic smoke. I looked at the judge. Her expression had hardened from annoyance to disgust. "You emancipated them?" the judge asked slowly. "Yes," Hunter yelled, feeling like he was winning. "I brought vision to this family. And how does she repay me? By cutting off my funding. That money she calls hers. It was family money. It was reparations for the work I did. She is just an angry black woman trying to bring down a successful white man because she knows she will never be on my level." Bianca put her face in her hands. She knew it was over. My parents, sitting in the back row of the gallery, looked like they wanted to melt into the floor benches. I looked at Hunter. He was breathing hard, looking around the room for approval. He truly believed it. He truly believed that my labor, my money, and my life belonged to him simply because he existed. Judge Reynolds stared at him for a long moment. Then she looked at the bailiff. "Is the record reflecting these statements?" she asked the court reporter. "Yes, Your Honor." "Good," the judge said. She turned back to Hunter. "Mr. Miller, in my 20 years on the bench, I have rarely seen a defense so repugnant, so lacking in legal merit, and so filled with entitled delusion." She picked up her gavel. It felt like watching an executioner pick up an axe. "I am granting the plaintiff's motion for summary judgment in full," the judge announced. Hunter's mouth dropped open. "What? You can't do that. I haven't even called my witnesses." "You have no witnesses, Mr. Miller," the judge snapped. "You have only your own admissions of guilt. The court finds that you and your wife are liable for defamation per se. I am awarding the plaintiff damages in the amount of $3 million to be paid from any and all current and future assets." $3 million, Hunter shrieked. "I don't have $3 million. Then your wages will be garnished for the rest of your life," the judge said coldly. "Furthermore, the eviction order is upheld immediately. You have until midnight to vacate the premises on Oak Street." She turned her attention to Bianca. "Mrs. Miller, regarding your role. While it appears you were coerced and manipulated by your husband, you were an active participant in the defamation. You used your platform to incite harassment against your sister." Bianca stood up, tears streaming down her face. "I am sorry, Your Honor. I didn't know. He told me it was okay. Ignorance is not a defense," the judge said. "However, considering your lack of prior criminal history, I am sentencing you to 500 hours of community service. You will spend that time scrubbing graffiti and picking up trash on the highway. Perhaps manual labor will teach you the value of work that you so clearly despise." Bianca nodded, sobbing. "Thank you, Your Honor." "But we are not finished," the judge said. She looked at the bailiff. "Officer, please take Mr. Miller into custody." Hunter froze. Custody. For what? This is a civil trial. You can't arrest me. Actually, I can, the judge said, picking up a new document from her bench. During the discovery phase of this trial, the plaintiff's forensic accountants uncovered evidence of wire fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. Mr. Miller, you are indicted on 12 counts of federal fraud for opening credit cards in your father-in-law's name without consent and transferring funds across state lines. Hunter backed away as the bailiff approached him with handcuffs. "No, that is a lie. Winston gave me permission. Winston, tell her." He spun around to look at the gallery. My father Winston sat stone still. He looked at Hunter, the man he had idolized, the man he had let destroy his family. Then slowly Winston shook his head. "I never gave you permission, son," Winston whispered. Hunter's face crumbled. The bailiff grabbed his wrists and spun him around. The sound of the handcuffs clicking shut was the sweetest sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a heavy door locking, keeping the monster away forever. "Get your hands off me!" Hunter screamed, thrashing as they dragged him toward the side door. "I am a CEO. I am a disruptor. You can't do this to me, Kamara. Tell them we are partners." I sat perfectly still. I did not turn my head. I stared straight ahead at the judge's bench. Hunter passed right by my table as they dragged him out. He was sweaty, spitting and crying. "Kamara, look at me, I made you. You are nothing without me." I slowly turned my head. I looked him in the eye. My face was a blank slate. No anger, no sadness, no triumph, just the absolute absence of care. I didn't say a word, I just watched. The door to the holding cell opened. The bailiff shoved him inside. "You will pay for this." Hunter's voice echoed from the hallway before the heavy steel door slammed shut, cutting off his scream. The courtroom fell silent. Bianca was weeping softly at her table. My parents were holding each other in the back. Judge Reynolds looked at me. "Ms. Miller, I hope this brings you some closure." "Thank you, Your Honor," I said quietly. The judge banged her gavel. "This court is adjourned." I stood up. I smoothed the front of my suit. "Marcus." My lawyer packed his briefcase. "Well handled," he said. I picked up my purse. I walked down the center aisle. I passed Bianca without stopping. I passed my parents without stopping. "Kamara," my mother whispered as I walked by. I kept walking. I pushed open the double doors of the courtroom and stepped out into the hallway. The sunlight from the high windows hit my face. I took a deep breath. The air tasted clean. It tasted like freedom. I checked my watch. I had a meeting with a new client in 20 minutes. I didn't have time for their drama anymore. I had an empire to run. The deadline set by the Superior Court was 12 noon on Friday. At 11:55, the cul-de-sac on Oak Street was quiet, but it was the heavy, suffocating silence of a held breath. I sat in the back of my black town car, parked 3 houses down from the property that had been the stage for my family's cruelty for 30 years. My tinted windows were rolled up, shielding me from the midday sun, but I could see everything perfectly. I saw the neighbors gathering on their porches, peeking through blinds and standing by their mailboxes. These were the same neighbors who had watched me get kicked out a week ago, whispering and pointing at the girl with the Honda Civic. Today the atmosphere was different. They weren't gossiping with glee. They were silent, their arms crossed, waiting to witness the fall of a dynasty that never really existed. At exactly 12 o'clock, a caravan of vehicles turned the corner. Leading the pack was the Sheriff's Department cruiser, its blue and red lights flashing silently. Behind it was a large unmarked white van used for asset seizure. And behind that, a moving truck hired by the state to clear the property of any remaining debris. It was time. I opened the car door and stepped out onto the asphalt. I was wearing all black. A tailored black trench coat, black sunglasses, and black stiletto heels that clicked sharply against the pavement. I looked like I was attending a funeral, which in a way I was. I was burying the last remnants of my childhood and the toxic loyalty that had bound me to these people. I walked toward the house. The sheriff, a tall man with a stern face named Officer Reynolds, met me at the edge of the driveway. He held a clipboard in his hand. "Ms. Miller," he said, tipping his hat respectfully, "we are ready to execute the order. The writ of possession is active. Do you want to wait here while we clear the building?" "No," I said, adjusting my sunglasses to hide the lack of emotion in my eyes. "I want to watch." We walked up the driveway together. The front door of the house was already open. My family knew better than to lock it against a court order. Inside, the scene was pathetic. My parents, Winston and Patricia, were standing in the foyer next to 3 black plastic trash bags. That was it. That was the sum total of their lives after the seizure order. Just their clothes and essential toiletries. Bianca was sitting on the bottom step of the staircase, staring at the blank wall. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was pulled back in a messy, greasy bun. She looked like a ghost of the arrogant influencer who had preened for the cameras just days ago. Officer Reynolds stepped into the doorway, his boots thudding heavily on the hardwood floor. "Time is up," he announced, his voice booming through the empty house. "By order of the Superior Court, you are hereby evicted from the premises. You have 5 minutes to vacate the property. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property." My father looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed and hollow-sunken deep into his skull. "We are going, officer. We are just waiting for a taxi." "You can wait on the curb," Reynolds said firmly. "This is now private property, and you are trespassing." Bianca stood up slowly. She reached for a large designer tote bag sitting next to her. It was a Chanel bag, quilted black leather, one of the many things she had bought during Hunter's spending spree with my money. "Leave the bag, ma'am," a second officer said, stepping forward from the shadows. Bianca clutched it to her chest, her knuckles turning white. "No. This is mine. It has my personal items in it." The officer shook his head. "The court order specifies that all luxury assets purchased within the last 5 years are subject to seizure to pay for damages and restitution to the plaintiff. That bag was purchased with funds from the KM Trust account. It stays." "But I need it!" Bianca screamed, her voice cracking into a high-pitched whine. "It is the only nice thing I have left." "It is evidence," the officer said. He reached out and gently but firmly pulled the bag from her grip. Bianca let out a sob that sounded like a wounded animal. She looked at me standing in the doorway, a silhouette in black. "You are letting them take my purse," she whispered. "You are letting them take everything." I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. I remembered the day she watched Hunter throw my grandmother's quilt into the mud. I remembered how she laughed. "Let's go," Reynolds said. "Move it out." They began the walk of shame. My father picked up 2 trash bags. My mother picked up the third. Bianca walked, empty-handed, her arms wrapped around herself as if she were freezing, even though it was 70 degrees outside. They walked out the front door and down the porch steps. The moment they stepped onto the lawn, the neighbors started talking. I could hear their voices drifting over the hedge. "Look at them," Mrs. Higgins said from next door. "Acting so high and mighty all these years. Turns out they were stealing from their own daughter." "Disgraceful," another neighbor muttered. "I feel bad for the girl." The quiet one. She was the only one who ever waved. My mother heard them. She kept her head down, staring at the grass, the same grass where my clothes had been thrown a week ago. They reached the sidewalk. The taxi hadn't arrived yet. They had to stand there exposed, huddled together like refugees, while the seizure team went into the house. I stood on the porch, leaning against the railing, watching the team carry out the rest of the items. They brought out Bianca's jewelry box. They brought out Hunter's expensive golf clubs, which he had hidden in the back of the closet. They brought out the brand new espresso machine. Every symbol of their fake status was catalog tagged with a yellow sticker and loaded into the white van. Then my mother turned around. She looked at the house. She looked at the manicured lawn. And then she looked at me standing on the porch, the mistress of the domain. Something in her snapped. The reality of her situation, the terrifying future of poverty and loneliness, finally broke through her pride. She dropped the trash bag. She ran toward me. "Kamara!" She screamed. "Kamara! Baby, please!" She ran up the driveway, her arms outstretched. Her face was twisted in a mask of pure desperation. "Don't do this. I am your mother. I gave you life. You can't throw me away like this." She reached the bottom of the porch steps. She fell to her knees, grasping at the railing, trying to pull herself up. "I am sorry," she wailed. "I am so sorry. I will do anything. I will be your maid. I will sleep in the basement. Just don't let them take me away. Please, Kamara, I love you." I looked down at her. A part of me, the little girl who had craved her affection for 30 years, the girl who had tried so hard to be perfect so she would be noticed, wanted to flinch, wanted to reach out. But that little girl was gone. She had died the night they locked the door on her. 2 large private security guards, men I had hired specifically for this moment, stepped in front of me. They formed a wall of black suits between me and my mother. "Ma'am, step back." One guard said, his voice low and threatening. My mother tried to push past him to get to my feet. "Let me talk to her. That is my daughter, Kamara. Tell them to move. Tell them you love me." I took a step forward, looking over the shoulder of the guard. I took off my sunglasses so she could see my eyes. They were dry. They were clear. There was no pity in them. "You don't love me, Patricia," I said, my voice carrying over her screams, clear and steady in the afternoon air. "You love what I provided, and now that the provision is gone, you are just mourning the loss of your comfort." "No. No, that isn't true," she sobbed, reaching through the railing, her fingers brushing the hem of my coat. I pulled my coat back out of her reach. "Goodbye, Patricia," I said. Officer Reynolds walked over and took my mother by the arm. He lifted her to her feet. She was dead weight, weeping uncontrollably, her legs giving out beneath her. "Come on, Mrs. Miller," he said gently. "The taxi is here." He led her down the driveway to the waiting yellow cab. My father was already in the back seat, refusing to look out the window, staring straight ahead at nothing. Bianca climbed in after them, casting one last hateful, terrified look at the house she would never enter again. The taxi door slammed shut. The car drove away, turning the corner and disappearing from view. The street fell silent. The neighbors went back inside. The show was over. I turned to Officer Reynolds. "Is the property clear?" I asked. "It is clear, Ms. Miller," he said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys. The keys to the front door. He handed them to me. The metal felt cold and heavy in my palm. "Possession is returned to the trustee," he said formally. "Do you need us to stay while you inspect the premises?" "No, thank you, officer. I can handle it from here." He nodded, signaled to his team, and they headed to their vehicles. Within a minute, I was alone. I stood on the porch. The wind chimed through the empty trees. I looked at the key in my hand. It was just a small piece of metal, but it represented everything. It represented my freedom. It represented my dignity. It represented the end of the generational curse I had just broken. I turned to the heavy wooden door. I put the key in the lock. It turned with a smooth, satisfying click. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The house was quiet. It smelled faintly of my mother's perfume and the musty scent of empty boxes. The floors were bare. The walls were stripped of the photos that had never included me. The silence was not empty. It was full of possibility. I walked through the living room. I walked down the hallway. I walked into the kitchen where I had cooked 1,000 meals that were eaten without a thank you. I walked to the back bedroom, my old room. Hunter had painted it gray, but the paint was already peeling in the corner. I touched the wall. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel happy. I felt light. I felt clean. I walked back to the front door. I stood in the threshold looking out at the world that was now wide open to me. I stepped back inside. I grabbed the heavy brass handle. I pulled the door shut. The sound of the latch clicking into place was the final period at the end of a long, painful sentence. I locked the deadbolt. I leaned my forehead against the cool wood of the door and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for 30 years. "It is done," I whispered to the empty house. "It is finally done." The silence inside the house was absolute. I stood in the center of the living room, the place where my brother-in-law had thrown my grandmother's quilt onto the floor, the place where my sister had filmed my humiliation, and the place where my mother had chosen a lie over her own daughter. For 30 years, this structure had been a monument to my inadequacy. Every corner held a memory of being told I was not enough. Every shadow held the echo of a whisper that I was the black sheep, the burden, the ATM. I walked to the window and looked out at the front lawn. The grass was still recovering from the tire tracks of the moving vans. The sun was beginning to set, casting long golden shadows across the neighborhood. It was a beautiful house. It was worth over $800,000. A smart investor would renovate it. A smart investor would flip it for a profit. A smart investor would rent it out and let the passive income roll in. But I was not just an investor today. I was an eraser. And some stains are too deep to be scrubbed out. They have to be removed entirely. I walked out the front door for the last time. I did not look back. I walked down the porch steps, the heels of my boots crunching on the gravel of the driveway. I walked past the mailbox where the subpoena had been served. I walked to the edge of the street where a massive yellow machine was idling. It was a bulldozer. Its engine rumbled with a deep guttural growl that vibrated in my chest. Next to it stood the foreman of the demolition crew, a burly man named Mike, who held a hard hat in his hands. "Ms. Miller," he asked, looking at the pristine house behind me. "Are you sure about this?" "It is a perfectly good structure. The foundation is solid. We could just strip the interior if you want to remodel." I put my sunglasses back on. I looked at the house. I saw the window of my old bedroom. I saw the kitchen window where I had washed dishes, while they laughed in the living room. "I am sure, Mike," I said. "I don't want to remodel. I want to reset." He nodded slowly, signaling to his driver. "All right then. You are the boss." I walked over to my Porsche Panamera parked a safe distance away. I leaned against the hood, crossing my arms. The bulldozer roared to life. The black smoke puffed from the exhaust stack. The treads began to turn, tearing up the manicured lawn that my father had prized so highly. The machine approached the front porch. The metal bucket raised up like a giant fist. Then it struck. The sound of wood splintering was loud and violent. The front porch collapsed in a cloud of dust. The machine pushed forward, relentless and unfeeling. The living room wall gave way. I watched as the gray paint Hunter had chosen crumbled into nothingness. I watched the ceiling cave in. I thought I would feel sad. I thought I would feel a sense of loss. But as the walls came down, exposing the empty skeleton of the house to the evening air, all I felt was air entering my lungs. It was as if the house had been sitting on my chest for decades, and finally I could breathe. The neighbors came out again. They stood on their lawns, mouths open, watching the destruction. They whispered to each other. They probably thought I was crazy. They probably thought I was destroying my inheritance out of spite. They were wrong. I wasn't destroying it. I was transforming it. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and opened the email draft I had written that morning. It was addressed to the City Planning Committee. Attached was a set of architectural blueprints. Subject: proposal for the Marcus Center for At-Risk Youth. The email detailed my plan to donate the land to the city. I was going to fund the construction of a community center specifically designed for teenagers who had been kicked out of their homes, for foster kids who aged out of the system, and for young people who had been told they were burdens. It would have a library. It would have a computer lab. It would have a garden, and it would be named after the only person in this family who had ever loved me. My grandfather. I hit send. The house was half gone now. The roof had collapsed into the kitchen. The dust was settling over the ruins. The physical manifestation of my trauma was being reduced to a pile of debris that would be hauled away in dump trucks. I opened my car door and slid into the driver's seat. The leather was cool and soft. The interior smelled of new car and expensive perfume. I started the engine. The dashboard lit up, glowing with potential. I picked up my phone one last time. I opened my photo gallery. I navigated to the hidden folder. Inside was the video file. The video Bianca had posted. The video of me standing in the rain, looking pathetic and lost. I watched it. I watched the girl on the screen. She looked so scared. She looked so small. I am not her anymore, I whispered. I tapped the trash icon. Delete this video, the prompt asked. This action cannot be undone. I smiled. That is the point. I tapped delete. The video vanished. The screen was empty. I put the phone in the center console. I put the car in drive. I pulled away from the curb, leaving the cloud of dust and the roar of the bulldozer behind me. I didn't look in the rear-view mirror. There was nothing back there for me. I drove toward the highway. The sun was setting in front of me, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. The city skyline rose up in the distance, a glittering promise of the future. My phone buzzed on the seat next to me. I glanced down. It was a text message from a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Miller, the text read. I heard what you did to the FitLife brand. I heard you are the person to call when things fall apart. I have a situation with my tech company. I need it erased. I was told you are the best. Name your price. I looked at the road ahead. The highway stretched out endlessly, an open vein of possibility. I picked up the phone. I used voice to text. My price is double for rush jobs, I dictated. And I require a retainer up front. I hit send. I turned up the music. I pressed my foot down on the accelerator. The Porsche surged forward, eating up the miles, carrying me away from the wreckage of the past and into the empire of my own making. I was no longer the daughter. I was no longer the sister. I was the eraser. And business was booming. This story serves as a powerful reminder that sharing DNA does not grant a license for abuse. Kamara's journey illustrates that true power lies in self-respect and financial independence. For years, she allowed her generosity to be weaponized against her, but she ultimately learned that we teach people how to treat us. The narrative demonstrates that setting boundaries is essential for survival. When kindness is met with constant cruelty and exploitation, the healthiest choice is often to sever ties completely. Being alone is far better than being surrounded by people who only value you for what you provide. Hit the like button if you agree that your peace is more expensive than their approval, and subscribe if you are ready to start writing your own rules. Share this video with someone who needs to know that walking away is not an act of weakness, it is an act of war against disrespect.